Chapter 1519. Everyone could tell from Lu Yan's sarcasm that she disliked Yunjian. Everyone present didn't like Lu Yan's existence, but Richard was too embarrassed to drive her away. After all, Lu Yan was an international superstar and had won an International Best Actress award not too long ago. She had countless fans and her current status in the international scene was not to be trifled with. Lu Yan was already prejudiced against Yunjian, so when Yunjian said what she said just now, Lu Yan was aggressive toward Yunjian. She was merely using Yunjian's words to oppress Yunjian. This place is indeed small and run down, Ce spoke before Yunjian could speak, his gaze fixed on Yunjian. Right after he said that, Lu Yan twitched her lips and was about to retort Ce, who was speaking up for Yunjian, when Ce's rich voice rang again. It can't even compare to the corner of my and Xiao Jian's newlywed room. Ce's ability to lie through his teeth was getting better and better. Even the most illusory things could be said to be true by him. Once he said that, Richard's focus was no longer on the fact that his country H's royal courtyard was being questioned. Instead, newlywed room? They even had a newlywed room. Although he knew that Ce and Yunjian were legally married in country R since they had a marriage certificate in country R, Richard still could not accept it. He had finally taken a liking to a woman and she ended up doing everything with someone else. Cough, cough, cough. My father knows that you're coming and has ordered my mother to set up a banquet in the palace. Shall we go over now? Richard did not want to hear Ce boasting about how loving he and Yunjian were, so he quickly changed the topic. Although Richard looked calm on the surface, his heart was actually broken. Seeing that he had achieved his goal, Ce was satisfied. He held Yunjian's hand with one hand and Xiao Yunju with the other. Yunjian held Duan Li's hand while Duan Li held Duanya's hand. The group of people walked towards the country H's palace. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were walking in the palace. Looking around, if they had not been to places bigger and more luxurious than this, they would really think that this was the biggest and most luxurious place. The ruler of country H was Richard's father, the king of country H. Of course, Richard's father was busy dealing with the country's affairs every day. Trivial matters like entertaining guests or managing the palace naturally fell to Richard's mother. The royal palace of country H was completely different from the royal palace of country Z. The royal palace of country H was completely built with Western architecture. It looked tall and powerful. As soon as she walked into the royal palace of H country, Yunjian saw a graceful and luxuriously dressed woman sitting at a long table not far away. The table was about 10 meters long and there were all kinds of refreshments on it. As long as one looked from afar, one would know that this was definitely the style of a noble. The woman was wearing an exclusive queen's crown on her head. Needless to say, this woman was Richard's mother and also the queen of country H, Marcia. You're back. The woman sat in a dignified manner. She looked up at Richard and asked in country H's own language. Lu Yan, Lin Wan, and the others didn't understand. Mother, I'm back. These are my friends. After Richard greeted Marcia, the queen of country H, he said calmly to Marcia. Yes, Suli has been thinking about you. Looking at the time, it's time for her to come downstairs, Marcia said. She was still talking to Richard in country H's language. Suli was Richard's younger sister. As soon as Marcia finished speaking, Yunjian raised her eyebrows. The next second, she saw a figure running down a spiral staircase somewhere in the palace. It was a delicate-looking little girl, about 11 or 12 years old. Chapter 1520. Suli was Richard's younger sister. Yao Lily had been to H country before because Yao Lily and Richard were close friends. Yao Lily had been to H country before, so Suli and Yao Lily had known each other for a long time. Suli liked Yao Lily very much, so when she saw Yao Lily, Suli immediately threw herself at her. Is this Miss Lu Yan who won the International Movie Queen Award recently? As the Queen of H country, Marcia was fluent in many languages. Chinese was the most common language, so as the Queen of H country, Marcia was naturally fluent in it. At this moment, Marcia turned to Lu Yan and asked in Chinese. Beautiful Queen, I am Lu Yan behaved appropriately in front of a person of high status. She first saluted Marcia with H country's etiquette and then replied politely. Sister Lily is my distinguished guest. She has been to our house before. Su Li said to Marcia while holding one of Yao Lily's hands. Yes. Marcia was a very noble lady. Hearing Su Li's words, Marcia nodded at Su Li. As the queen of H country, Marcia paid a lot of attention to her words and actions. After getting to know Yao Lily and Lu Yan, Marcia glanced at Yun Jian, Ce, and Lin Wan with Her Majesty as the queen. Seeing that Yun Jian and the others were not well dressed and did not behave like the nobles in the palace, Marcia did not even bother to ask for Yun Jian and Ce's names. Marcia just turned to Richard and said to Richard in a polite manner, let your friends sit down and eat. In Marcia's words, it was obvious that she was the queen while Yun Jian and the others were lowly people. But this was normal. After all, Marcia was the queen of H country. As the queen of H country, of course she was nobler than others. International stars like Yao Lily and Lu Yan had strong fans. Therefore, Marcia felt that only Yao Lily and Lu Yan could be counted as her distinguished guests. As for Yun Jian, Ce, and the rest, they were probably wearing street clothes. As the queen of H country, of course Marcia would not point at Yun Jian and mock her like Peng Kai Hui. As the queen, she still had the demeanor of the queen of H country. Yun Jian and Ce naturally felt that Marcia was mocking them. But Yun Jian and Ce did not care about Marcia's opinion did not matter. If it were not for Yao Lily, Yun Jian would have taken Xiao Yunju and the others to have fun. Before they started eating, Richard, who was sitting 3 meters away from Yun Jian, pointed at the dishes in front of Yun Jian and said, Yun Jian, the dish in front of you is called herring. It's a specialty of H country. You can try it. Richard still did not give up. Yun Jian's eyes flickered at that but she did not respond. Marcia, the queen of H country, who was also Richard's mother, saw that her son was so concerned about Yun Jian. She moved her mouth slightly. The etiquette of the palace made Marcia have the habit of eating without talking. Even if the sky fell down, she would eat first and then talk. As soon as Richard finished speaking, Ce, who was sitting next to Yun Jian, picked up a piece of herring with his chopsticks and fed it to Yun Jian. Yun Jian did not think much of it. She held Ce's chopsticks in her mouth and ate the piece of herring. Is it good? Ce stared at Yun Jian with his black eyes, as if he was the one who made the dish. When Richard saw this, he was so angry that he almost went berserk. Brother Ce is feeding my sister fish. I want it too. I want it too. Chestnut, give me a piece. Little Yunju asked in anticipation when he saw Ce taking a piece of herring meat for Duanli with his head tilted to look at her. I can't stand you. Can't you do it yourself? Duanli said to Xiao Yunju in a playful tone. Chapter 1521. Duanli fed the herring meat to Xiao Yunju's mouth. Xiao Yunju bit it and chewed for a long time before swallowing it. Of course, he also spat out the fish bones that could not be eaten. Seeing that Xiao Yunju had swallowed the herring meat she fed him, Duanli shook her little head with 2 pigtails. She rested her chin on her hands and looked at Xiao Yunju. She smiled and asked Xiao Yunju, is it delicious? This question was similar to what Ce asked Yun Jian just now. Yun Jian heard that Duanli's question coincided with Ce's. She pursed her lips and did not say anything. It's delicious. Chestnut's food is the best. Xiao Yunju gave Duanli a thumbs up. During the meal, except for the sentence that Richard said to Yun Jian at the beginning, Yao Lily, Lu Yan and the others all ate in their bowls and did not say anything. The nobles in the palace had stricter requirements than ordinary people when they ate. One of the rules was that they were not allowed to talk during the meal. Otherwise, it would be regarded as impolite. This was the opposite in Z country. Z country's custom was to talk while eating. If you did not talk for a minute, you would feel bored. Therefore, you must talk while eating. As for people in H country, it was taboo to suck, burp and swallow during the meal. Otherwise, it would be regarded as impolite. On the other hand, Yunju and the other two boys sucked and burped, wolfing down the food when they were full. It was considered impolite. Ordinary people in H country would usually talk during the meal. However, in the palace of H country, talking was taboo during the meal. Therefore, what Xiao Yunju and the other two, Yunjian and Ce did just now made Queen Marcia frown. However, Marcia did not say anything as she adhered to the etiquette of not talking while eating. On the other hand, Xiao Yunju and the other two were fooling around. Marcia was terrified as she watched them. She felt that these three naughty kids would flip the table over. In fear, Marcia ended the meal unhappily. Then, in front of everyone, Marcia asked the maid to rinse her mouth with the prepared mouthwash. She spat the mouthwash back into the basin and wiped her face with a wet towel before standing up. Hee hee. It was so delicious. I'm so full. Duanli rubbed her full belly and said to Xiao Yunju. Me too. Xiao Yunju stood up handsomely and said. Yunjian and Ce also stood up. Yao Lili and Lu Yan did not speak throughout the meal. They only spoke when they stood up and left the table. At this moment, Marcia, who could not bear it any longer, stood aside. Marcia calmed herself down and turned to look at Yunjian, Ce, and Xiao Yunju. She paused for a while and frowned. Are you Z people all so impolite when eating? Her words were full of contempt and mockery. Of course, as the queen, Marcia could not speak so directly to Yunjian and the others. After hearing Marcia's words, Yunjian raised her eyebrows slightly and was about to speak. Richard was afraid that Yunjian would annoy his mother and make things unpleasant. If that happened, he and Yunjian would not be able to get together in the future. Therefore, Richard spoke to Marcia before Yunjian could. Mother, this is the custom of the Z people. Please don't be offended. Let's go out for a walk. Anyone who comes is a guest. Anyone who comes is a guest. After hearing Richard's words, Yunjian's eyes turned cold. However, no one said anything at this moment. Although Marcia's expression was not good, as the Queen of H, she could not get angry. Therefore, Marcia controlled her emotions and turned to look at Lu Yan. She said kindly, You are Lu Yan, Yan, right? Do you want to go out for a walk? Marcia could tell that her son Richard liked Yunjian. However, in comparison, Marcia preferred someone like Lu Yan. Her son Richard was already very old. He was already 25 or 26 years old. However, he still had not found a girl that he liked. As his mother, Marcia could not help but feel anxious. On the other hand, Lu Yan was called out by Marcia. She was as excited as a maid in the harem who was appointed by the emperor. She quickly ran over and held Marcia's hand. Then, she said very politely. Okay, beautiful queen, I will accompany you at any time. Marcia liked people like Lu Yan. Therefore, she patted the back of Lu Yan's hand and turned to walk out with Lu Yan. Halfway through, Marcia turned around again. In order to not lose her hospitality as the queen, Marcia invited Yunjian, Ce, Yao Lili and the others. Come and walk with me. Anyone who comes is a guest. Chapter 1522. Between the host and the guests, the host was usually very polite. Sometimes, when the guests came, the host would even go to the gate to welcome the guests. Of course, this was only limited to the hosts who were very polite. However, Marcia gave people the feeling that she was the host. Her words were like orders that must be carried out, because she was a superior person. Even in front of Yao Lili and Lu Yan, Marcia did not lower her attitude. Even though Yao Lili and Lu Yan were international superstars and the spokespersons of the top figures in the entertainment circle. From the beginning to the end, Marcia had always maintained her cold demeanor and had never changed. Of course, all this could be explained by the fact that she was the queen of country H. As the queen of a country, she had to maintain her cold attitude. It's evening now. The weather here is not hot, so it's best to go out for a walk. The scenery in country H is so beautiful. If you take the child out for a walk, she won't be exposed to the sun in this weather. At this time, Yao Lily stood in front of Yunjian and said to her. At the same time, Yao Lily looked down at Yunjian's pink little face. Okay. Yunjian originally did not want to go out with Marcia and the others. However, after hearing Yao Lily's words, he said that the weather was not very hot at this time of the year. If she took the child out for a walk, she would not be exposed to the sun. Considering this point, Yunjian nodded. If Yunjian wanted to go, how could Ce not go? Xiao Yunju and the other two also went out with them excitedly. Of course, Marcia had a special car to pick her up when she went out for a walk. After all, if a queen went out for a walk without any attendants or bodyguards, what would happen if she was assassinated? The special car took them to a field of tulips near the royal palace of Country H. Tulips were planted by the road and in the field. There were also many herdsmen working in the field of tulips. This was a field of tulips, and there were windmills located not far from each other. Looking from the side of the road into the field, there were endless tulips. Tulips of various colors swayed in the field, giving people a very comfortable sense of beauty. In the evening sky, a red glow shone down from the horizon, hitting the cozy fields, giving people a very comfortable feeling. Walking in the field, Queen Marcia only allowed Lu Yan to hold her hand and chat with her while walking at the front. Yunjian and the others followed behind. Richard wanted to approach Yunjian, but was stopped by Ce. Because they were in a field, Xiao Yunju and the other two could run and jump as they pleased. As long as they didn't run into the road, they wouldn't be afraid of other accidents. At this time, Queen Marcia let Lu Yan hold her hand and walked in front. Marcia stopped in the middle of a tulip field. She turned sideways and suddenly asked the people around her on a whim. What kind of specialties do you girls have? Marcia looked at the girls around her. She wanted to choose a wife for her son, Richard, who could inherit the position of queen in the future. Beautiful queen, I know violin, piano, guitar, ballet, Latin dance. Lu Yan knew that Marcia liked her very much, so she deliberately moved closer to Marcia and said shyly. But I'm not very good at these things. I'm still learning now. My family wasn't very rich in the past, so I just started learning these things now. Lu Yan said and slightly raised her head to look at Marcia. Good girl. You're the best. If a person liked someone, they would be happy no matter what. But if a person didn't like someone, they would not be happy no matter what. Marcia patted the back of Lu Yan's hand and said gently. Yao Lily and Lin Wan also talked about their specialties. When Yunjian was asked, Marcia looked at her from the corner of her eyes. What about you? What kind of musical instruments do you know? Marcia looked at Yunjian with an indifferent look. She also didn't expect to hear Yunjian's reply. Lu Yan glanced at Yunjian coldly from the corner of her eyes. She thought that Yunjian definitely didn't know anything and was a country bumpkin. But she didn't expect that Yunjian's next words would directly stun Queen Marcia, Lu Yan, and all the servants around them. Yunjian sneered and said, What I know. Heavy weapons, guns, artillery, missiles, nuclear weapons, tracking and anti-tracking. As long as you can name it, there's nothing I don't know. Chapter 1523. It was not hard to imagine that Queen Marcia was a typical literary person. In her mind, a girl should behave like a good woman. A girl should do something that was worthy of being a girl. She should behave herself at home and be good at music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. She should not be too close to men before marriage. Such a girl was the real standard of a future daughter-in-law in Marcia's eyes. Yunjian and Ce were always together. Marcia did not know about the relationship between Yunjian and Ce, so she did not have a good first impression of Yunjian. Moreover, Yunjian's dressing was not what a noble girl should look like. Therefore, she could tell that Yunjian was definitely not from a noble family. Therefore, Marcia was instinctively repulsed when she found out that her son was interested in Yunjian. Lu Yan's behavior was very similar to Marcia's standard of a daughter-in-law. However, her son liked Yunjian, so it was difficult to make a choice. Therefore, Marcia asked the question just now. Even if Yunjian knew one or two things that girls should do, Marcia felt that as long as her son liked Yunjian, she could still consider Yunjian. Lu Yan could play so many musical instruments, dance and play. She was also an international superstar like her son. Marcia admired Lu Yan very much. Therefore, Marcia was very satisfied with Lu Yan as her daughter-in-law. As for Yunjian, at most, she had the attitude that her son liked her and she wanted to observe if she was qualified to be her daughter-in-law. However, Marcia did not expect that she only asked Yunjian if she knew something that girls should know. In the end, Yunjian actually said that she knew how to use heavy weapons, guns and cannons, missiles and nuclear weapons. She also said that she knew how to kill people. Marcia was completely shocked by Yunjian's words. God! Was this still something that a girl should say? Weapons, guns and cannons, these were things that men should do. But what about Yunjian? Yunjian, on the other hand, actually knew how to use these terrifying weapons. Holding back the urge to faint, Marcia held Lu Yan's arm to hold hers so that she did not pass out from the shock of Yunjian's words. Lu Yan was also shocked by Yunjian's words. Of course, she was not really shocked. Instead, she thought that Yunjian was stupid. She actually said that she knew those things. If this was not stupid, then what was? As she thought about it, she saw Marcia looking at Yunjian in disbelief and asking at the same time, "What's the matter?" "Oh my God. You are just a little girl. Why did you say that you know so many terrifying weapons? You're just spouting nonsense on purpose, aren't you?" Marcia rubbed her forehead as she spoke. She had been queen for so many years, but this was the first time she had heard of such a dangerous thing from a young girl. Of course, Marcia did not believe that Yunjian knew so many terrifying weapons. After hearing Marcia's words, Yunjian raised her eyebrows slightly. She smiled coldly and said, "Nonsense? If it is not nonsense, then is it true?" Marcia felt that she could not communicate with Yunjian. She felt that Yunjian wanted to show off in front of her. She wanted to show that she was crazy, so she said that. Just when Marcia finished her sentence, she saw that Yunjian, who was standing in front of her, suddenly flipped her hand and a butterfly knife appeared out of thin air. The butterfly knife swayed left and right and flashed past Marcia. It was so fast that Marcia did not even have time to react. By the time Marcia came to her senses, a few strands of her long hair had already been shaved off by Yunjian with the butterfly knife. The speed of the blade was unparalleled. This change made Marcia's face turn pale. Lu Yan, Richard, and the group of servants around them were also shocked. When everyone looked up at Yunjian, they saw Yunjian with a cold smile and said coldly. Chapter 15:24. Yunjian had cut off Marcia's long hair with the butterfly knife. She was so fast that no one could react in time. In addition to what Yunjian said later and the butterfly knife she held in her hand, it was hard to believe. Marcia was really frightened, even though she did not believe Yunjian's words. "You are looking down on the royal power. Put down the knife. Otherwise, the soldiers of Country H will charge you with murdering the queen and execute you." Marcia was really scared, but the queen's prestige that came from her bones made her unwilling to lower her head. Thus, Marcia shouted at Yunjian. Marcia's backer was the royal family of Country H. Other than that, she had nothing. In Marcia's mind, Yunjian was just an ordinary little girl from Country Z. She did not have the ability to fight against the royal family of Country H. Once the soldiers of Country H took action, how could she, Yunjian, survive? However, she did not know that Yunjian was not afraid at all. After hearing Marcia's words, Yunjian's smile became more obvious. She curled her lips and revealed a strange smile in front of everyone. "You can try and see if your Country H soldiers are faster or if I'm faster when I'm cutting your neck," Yunjian said coldly. Marcia trembled when Yunjian looked at her with her cold eyes. She did not know why. She did not believe that Yunjian could do anything to her, but when she met Yunjian's sharp eyes, she actually felt scared. After all, Marcia was the queen of country Z. She could not afford to lose her face. Thus, after Yunjian finished her words, Marcia wanted to say something forcefully. However, this time, before Marcia could say anything, Richard pressed her shoulder. "Mother, this is just a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Yunjian likes to joke. In country Z, she is still underage. She is not sensible, please forgive her." Richard was so scared that his face turned pale. The girl he liked quarreled with his mother. Was there still any hope for him? Marcia was actually scared by Yunjian. After Richard said that, Marcia immediately followed Richard's words and found herself an excuse. When Marcia was about to scold Yunjian with her status as the queen of country, she saw Ce holding Yunjian's hand and pulling Yunjian into her arms. Seeing this, Marcia was even more annoyed with Yunjian. She turned her head and wanted to find Lu Yan, but found that Lu Yan was not beside her. Where is she? Where did Lu Yan go? Sister. I don't know when Duanya is standing on the road. I'm afraid that a car's coming. Sister, can you quickly carry Duanya down? Duanli ran to Yunjian and said hurriedly to Yunjian. Xiao Yunju and Duanli did not pay attention to Duanya for a while, and Duanya was standing on the road from the field. They did not know how Duanya got up there. There were a lot of cars on the road. It was very likely that an ignorant child would get into trouble if she stood on the road. No one saw that Lu Yan, who had disappeared for a while when Marcia and Yunjian were talking, had returned silently. When Yunjian heard Duanli's words, her heart skipped a beat. Just as she turned around, she saw Duanya standing in the middle of the road in a daze. Not far away, a large truck was driving towards the middle of the road where Duanya was standing. The truck was very big and the driver's seat was very high. The driver was driving the truck and did not notice Duanya, who was standing in the middle of the road in a dazed and pitiful manner. Oh my God! At this moment, even Queen Marcia was shocked. If the truck ran over Duanya's small body, Duanya would definitely die. She might even be crushed into minced meat. Sister! Duanli saw this scene and screamed in fear. It's over, that child. That child is finished. Even the farmers who were farming nearby covered their eyes and did not dare to see what was going to happen next. Chapter 1525. The truck driver was sitting high up in the driver's seat, humming a song as he drove. He did not notice that not far from him, poor Duanya was blinking her eyes as she watched his truck drive over. Duanya did not have much experience, so she was not as witty as Duanli. Perhaps it was because she was born in a poor family and was beaten by her alcoholic father every day, so Duanya had developed a quiet and unreasonable personality. Even now, when the truck drove over, she did not know how many times to shout for help. She just blinked her eyes and stared blankly. Due to her young age, Duanya had no concept of death. The surrounding farmers were shouting for the driver of the truck to stop. However, the driver did not notice Duanya's existence at all. He was humming a song with his eyes closed. From the looks of it, the driver should be listening to music. The people standing around all let out terrified cries. It's over. This little girl is definitely done for. It's a truck. The entire truck is going to run over this little girl. Will she still be alive? Queen Marcia was so frightened by the sudden change that she closed her eyes. Her elegant and graceful posture had already turned pale at this moment. Lu Yan was also shocked. After all, the truck running over a little girl was extremely frightening just thinking about this scene. Richard was also so frightened that his face changed greatly. When everyone's expression changed greatly, a small figure suddenly flashed in front of them. The truck was less than 10 meters away from Duanya's position. Most of the people present closed their eyes, anticipating how bloody the next scene would be. Yunjian ran in that direction as if she was flying. Ce did not move. Based on his understanding of her, she was strong enough to be unharmed. Therefore, Ce grabbed Xiao Yunju and Duanli's collars and did not let Xiao Yunju and Duanli run over there and increase Yunjian's burden. The next moment, Yunjian's small figure stood in the field of tulips. With a kick of her left leg, she jumped onto the road. Then, without stopping, she ran towards Duanya's position. Her speed was comparable to a speeding sports car. Marcia and the others who were standing on the spot were completely dumbfounded. They felt that the reason why the driver didn't stop was that Duanya was too far away from the road where Duanya was standing. It should be known that it would take at least 30 seconds for a normal person to run from here to Duanya's position. What about Yunjian? She actually used a mere 6 seconds to rush in front of Duanya and grab Duanya in the next second. At this moment, the truck was already right in front of Yunjian. The driver suddenly noticed Yunjian and Duanya, but it was too late for him to turn the steering wheel in fear. Yunjian. After Lin Wan reacted, her eyes widened. She strode over there. Richard was also frightened, but he did not rush towards Yunjian. Queen Marcia was also terrified. No one dared to see the bloody scene. However, just when everyone thought that the truck was about to hit Yunjian and Duanya in the last 3 seconds, Yunjian and Duanya were about to be hit. Yunjian, who was about to be hit, grabbed Duanya with one hand. At the moment when the truck was about to hit them, she stomped hard on the ground and leaped up. Seeing this scene from afar, everyone thought that Yunjian was crazy. Then, in the next breath, Yunjian leaped 2 meters high. She landed on the glass of the truck, stepped on a dent in the truck, and jumped again with the help of gravity. In the second jump, Yunjian jumped more than 4 meters high. The truck was at most 3.8 meters high, so Yunjian easily jumped onto the roof of the truck. Without hesitation, she ran 2 steps from the roof of the truck, grabbed Duanya, and jumped down from the roof of the back of the truck, easily avoiding the disaster that almost happened. She jumped from the front of the truck to the roof of the truck, and then jumped down from the back of the truck. Yunjian directly jumped over a truck. And the whole process only took 5 seconds. Marcia, Richard, Lu Yan, and the others who were standing far away suddenly saw this scene. They were so scared that their faces turned pale. Yunjian could actually take people and avoid the collision of the truck at such a high speed. Chapter 1526. Oh my God. Who is this little girl? Is she Superman? She jumped over the roof of the truck. Isn't this something that only Supermen in fantasy can do? Oh my God. She is so awesome. She was simply a superwoman. This foreign girl is so awesome. The farmers who were sowing and combing the tulips in their fields were discussing Yunjian's actions in Country H's native language. Queen Marcia, who was standing in the distance, kept changing her expression. As the queen of the kingdom, Marcia had always maintained her calm and graceful demeanor as a queen. What Yunjian did just now, however, took Marcia by surprise. When Yunjian leaped over the roof of the truck and landed steadily to avoid the dangerous car accident with Duanya, Marcia was stunned. Marcia's eyes widened. She looked as if she had encountered something terrifying. This was the first time that Marcia lost her composure in front of others. Oh my God. Yunjian, she. Richard also stared at Yunjian with fear. He was really frightened by Yunjian's skills, so he stammered and could not react for a long time. Lu Yan's face also darkened when she saw that Yunjian had saved Duanya and Yunjian, and that Duanya and Yunjian were unharmed. No one saw that Lu Yan clenched her fists tightly. Lin Wan, who was running towards Yunjian, stopped when she saw this scene. Yao Lily observed the reactions of the people around her. She wasn't too surprised. Instead, she tilted her head slightly and patted Richard's shoulder. She said to Richard, "Don't worry. Hey, SS is much more powerful than this. Just a little thing and you are all so scared, haha." As soon as Yao Lily finished her words, Richard suddenly looked up at Yao Lily. No matter how powerful she is just a little girl. How powerful can she be? Lu Yan was not convinced. Besides, Yao Lily was not on good terms with her, so Lu Yan sneered at Yao Lily first. How could Yunjian be so powerful? No matter how powerful she was just a girl. How powerful could a girl be? Lu Yan did not believe what Yao Lily said about Yun Jian wiping out a small organization. Yao Lily was so exasperated by Lu Yan's words that she wanted to reveal Yun Jian's identity and scare the latter. Yao Lily knew that Yun Jian's identity was related to the senior members of an Han organization. However, Yao Lily controlled herself. Yao Lily knew that Yun Jian's identity should not be exposed. You don't believe me? Just you wait. Yao Lily could not help but argue with Lu Yan again. Then, she stood aside and did not want to talk to Lu Yan anymore. Yao Lily really could not like a woman like Lu Yan. At this moment, everyone saw Yun Jian carrying Duanya slowly walking back from the other side of the road. After the initial shock, Marcia was a queen after all. Naturally, she had good leadership skills. Seeing that Yun Jian had returned, Marcia reverted back to her calm and graceful queen-like demeanor. Seeing Yun Jian carrying Duanya back, Marcia could not help but scold her. You Z people are not only rude when eating, even your children are not obedient. They run around everywhere. After that, Marcia turned to face Yun Jian with her back and extended her hand to Lu Yan, telling her, Lu Yan, what do you think? Yan Yan, hold my hand. I am tired. Let's go back to the palace. Marcia had just finished her sentence and reached out her hand to Lu Yan. Lu Yan saw this and did not respond. Suddenly, a fierce kick landed on Lu Yan's abdomen, knocking Lu Yan down on the spot in the tulip field. Queen Marcia only saw a shadow in front of her. When she came back to her senses, she saw that Yun Jian had already kicked Duanya to the ground and the shadow flashed in front of Lu Yan. Chapter 1527. Marcia liked Lu Yan very much. How much did she like Lu Yan? Just now, Marcia wanted Lu Yan to help her back to the palace. Who was Marcia? She was the queen of H country. H country was not a backward country. As the queen of H country, not everyone was qualified to serve her. Marcia really wanted Lu Yan to be the future queen of H country. She wanted Lu Yan to be the lover of her son, Richard. Although Lu Yan was an actress, Marcia's own son, Richard, was also an actress. In the eyes of H country, being an actress was not an unspeakable occupation. Z country might have regarded actors and singers as improper occupations in the past. A long time ago, only those who looked slightly better but had a lower standard of living would choose to be an actress. H country changed their views earlier than Z country in this aspect. Therefore, Marcia did not mind if an actress became the queen of H country. When Marcia chose her son's future wife, she never considered whether the woman was clean or not. Instead, she considered whether the woman would benefit her son's future and development. Lu Yan had a bright future now. Her international status was almost the same as Richard's. The only difference was that one was a movie queen and the other was a movie king. One was a man and the other was a woman. Therefore, Marcia liked Lu Yan because of Lu Yan's background and support. Therefore, when Marcia reached out to Lu Yan to help her back to the palace, Yun Jian suddenly kicked Lu Yan into the tulip field. Then, she leaned over and put the shiny butterfly knife on Lu Yan's neck. Marcia was completely stunned. The people around did not understand why Yun Jian suddenly kicked Lu Yan into the tulip field. Marcia was even more confused. Of course, as the queen of a country, Marcia naturally could not reach out to help Lu Yan who was kicked into the tulip field. Marcia just looked at Yun Jian from the corner of her eyes. Her eyebrows were almost knitted into a line. She suppressed her anger and told Yun Jian that she could not be angry because she was the queen of a country. She calmed herself down and said to Yun Jian, "What are you doing? What plan? Let go of Yan Yan. Yan Yan is an honored guest of country H. Don't tell me that you Z people like to fight for no reason." After hearing Yun Jian's cruel words, Marcia did not take Yun Jian's words seriously. Even when Yun Jian saved Duanya from the truck and did such a terrifying thing, Marcia did not take Yun Jian's words seriously. Murder? A little girl like her dared to kill someone? Was he delusional? Marcia was used to exerting her authority as the queen, so when she spoke to Yun Jian, she sounded like she was giving orders. That's right. Even the queen said so. Why did you hit me for no reason? Hurry up and put the knife away. When Lu Yan saw that Marcia was backing her up, she quickly spoke to Yun Jian. Although she was afraid that Yun Jian would place the butterfly knife on her neck, for the sake of her pride, Lu Yan refused to give in. Thanks to you, my sister was able to stand on the road just now. Do you really think that I don't dare to kill you? Yun Jian sneered. Just when Marcia, Lu Yan, Richard, and the rest thought that Yun Jian would not really do anything to Lu Yan, the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand was pushed a little harder towards Lu Yan's neck. Lu Yan was frightened by the sudden sharp pain and screamed. Blood gushed out and Marcia and the rest's faces turned pale instantly. What? Yun Jian's sister was able to stand on the road because of Lu Yan? This was not the point. Although Marcia was frightened by Yun Jian, she remained calm. When she saw that Yun Jian was pushing the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand again, she raised her voice to Yun Jian. How dare you kill her in front of me? I even dare to kill you. Why wouldn't I dare to kill her? Under Marcia's disbelieving gaze, Yun Jian was still aggressive. Chapter 1528. Please. I beg you. Please don't kill me. I was wrong, I was wrong. Yun Jian pushed the butterfly knife in her hand further and Lu Yan's neck started to bleed. Perhaps Lu Yan was frightened, or perhaps it was because of the intense pain. Lu Yan immediately screamed and begged for mercy with all her strength. The neck was a fatal spot and it was also the most difficult part to recover from. If she did not control her strength well enough, she could kill Lu Yan right away by pushing the knife against her neck like she was doing. Yun Jian controlled her strength well. She pushed the butterfly knife into Lu Yan's neck and Lu Yan would not die on the spot. Of course, if she was not treated, Lu Yan would die. However, Yun Jian controlled the butterfly knife and pushed it into Lu Yan's neck. Lu Yan would not die for a while. Queen Marcia did not expect that Yun Jian would dare to do it. Marcia, who had been pretending to be calm, could not help but stagger. She was obviously scared by Yun Jian. Then Marcia could not even say a word. Perhaps it was because Marcia had taken Yun Jian's, I even dare to kill you, why would I not dare to kill her, seriously, she did not utter another word as she stood on the side. Yun Jian then turned her eyes to Lu Yan. Yun. Richard wanted to say something but stopped when he saw Yun Jian's cold eyes. Say it. Why did you set my sister up? Yun Jian pushed the butterfly knife deeper into Lu Yan's neck every time she said a word. Although there were many bodyguards and servants around her, Marcia did not dare to say anything. Marcia, as the queen of H country, had a strong aura. However, compared to Yun Jian, she was far behind. Even the people around felt that Yun Jian was being ridiculous. Did Lu Yan set Duanya up? Was it Lu Yan who made Duanya stand on the road? Even if the people around didn't believe that Lu Yan was behind Duanya's incident, they had to hold their breath and look at Yun Jian. Just when Marcia and everyone else thought that Lu Yan was wrongly accused, in order to save her own life, Lu Yan did not care about anything else. She immediately spilled out everything that had happened to her. I was wrong, I was wrong. Let me go. I'm just, jealous. I'm jealous that you're able to obtain Prince Desmond's love. I didn't mean it. I was wrong. Don't kill me. As long as you don't, don't kill me. Whatever Prince does, I'll give it all to you. I won't pretend to be a lady in front of the queen anymore. As long as you let me go. Lu Yan was so scared that she started to talk nonsense. At this moment, Lu Yan could not think of anything else. Her mind was only filled with fear. What? Queen Marcia was shocked when she heard Lu Yan's words. So what Lu Yan did just now was all an act. Queen, as Richard's friend, I have to say that Lu Yan's current achievements were all due to her subterfuge. Yao Lily also said to Marcia. Yao Lily would not say anything more. He had already said what he wanted to say. What happened next would depend on Marcia's own opinion. Sure enough, as soon as Yao Lily finished his words, Marcia's face turned even uglier. Yun Jian did not kill Lu Yan. In the end, Lu Yan was sent away by the paramedics. If it was in her previous life, Yun Jian would definitely slit Lu Yan's throat. However, she did not do so now. That was because she had found a better way to punish her. If a person died, everything would be over. What else could be more painful than living a life worse than death? If a person died, there would be nothing left. Since Lu Yan dared to lay her hands on Duanya, Yun Jian would definitely ruin her reputation and make her live a life worse than death. She would not die a quick death like this. The deep scar on Lu Yan's neck was destined to leave a scar. It also meant that her glorious career in the entertainment industry would not last long. How dare someone lay their hands on Yun Jian's people? Chapter 1529. Lu Yan's matter came to an end. Lu Yan, who was sent to the hospital, was not well liked, so no one was willing to accompany her. At first, Queen Marcia had a good impression of Lu Yan, but now it was all gone. Not to mention promoting Lu Yan to be the future queen of H country, Marcia was not even willing to let Lu Yan enter the palace. Marcia was a very realistic person. She could like someone in an instant, but she could also hate someone in an instant. The like here had nothing to do with love. As for Yun Jian, Marcia did not say anything and left on her own. In the evening of the same day, Yun Jian took Xiao Yunju, the 3 children, and Ce to play in the tulip field until late at night. Lin Wan, Yao Lily, and Richard also followed Yun Jian and the others to walk in the tulip field. Rather than following Yun Jian and the others, it was better to follow Xiao Yunju and the other 2 children. Xiao Yunju and the other 2 children were very noisy. They jumped around in the tulip field and had a lot of fun. Yun Jian kept following them because she was worried that they would run to places where they should not run and fall. Ce put his hands in his trouser pockets and followed wherever Yun Jian went. Ce's handsome face, which usually did not show any smile all year round, now had a doting smile as if he had eaten honey. If one looked carefully, they would find that Ce was looking at Yun Jian, who was chasing Xiao Yunju and the other 2 children. Even Lin Wan, Yao Lily, and Richard, who were following behind, could feel his doting smile. Seeing this, Richard clenched his fist again and his pupils shrank. It was not until Xiao Yunju and the other 2 children were lying on the side of a tulip field, panting and resting, that Yun Jian stopped. The others who had been following behind also came up. Lin Wan and Yao Lily walked up to Yun Jian. Lin Wan looked at Ce and then at Yun Jian and said to Yun Jian, Sister Lily and I are going to the market near H country. We won't disturb your family anymore. Hey! After Lin Wan described Yun Jian, Ce, and Xiao Yunju as a family, she did not wait for Yun Jian to react. She quickly turned around and grabbed Yao Lily, and the 2 of them flew away. Not knowing when, from a commoner who looked at the superstar, Yao Lily, with Yao Lily, Sister Lily. By the time Yun Jian realized what Lin Wan meant by family, Lin Wan and Yao Lily had already run far away. Then Yun Jian's face turned slightly red. After Lin Wan and Yao Lily left, there was only one outsider, Richard. But Richard had no intention of leaving at all. When Lin Wan said that Yun Jian, Ce, and Xiao Yunju were a family, Richard almost went berserk. He felt that he could not control himself. He liked Yun Jian. Whether she was married or not, he wanted her. As the Prince of H country, Richard could have anything he wanted. This was the first time that he could not get something. So he was very persistent. When he thought of this, Richard felt that he had to start with the most basic conversation with Yun Jian. Just as Richard turned around to talk to Yun Jian, he saw Ce standing in front of Yun Jian. He held Yun Jian's head, bent his lean back slightly, and kissed Yun Jian's rosy lips. Seeing this scene, Richard almost rushed over. But that was not all. Ce held Yun Jian's head with one hand and hugged Yun Jian's waist with the other. He pressed Yun Jian down on the tulip field. Chapter 1530. Ce pressed Yun Jian down on a patch of tulips. The patch of tulips that had fallen down seemed to have formed a natural bed for Ce and Yun Jian. Other than the patch of tulips that Ce was pressing down on Yun Jian, the other tulips on the field were still standing. The tulips weren't short. If someone were standing far away, they wouldn't be able to see the scene of Ce pressing down on Yun Jian. However, Richard was standing less than 5 meters away from Yun Jian and Ce. Richard could clearly see that Ce was kissing Yun Jian's lips and pushing Yun Jian down on the tulips. The two of them were in close contact, as if the clouds were a house and the earth was a bed. This scene made Richard want to die. Richard clenched his fists tightly and was so angry that his face was about to turn green. But what was worse was that Ce's hand, which was wrapped around Yun Jian's waist, slid from Yun Jian's back to her front. His large, well-defined hand even grabbed onto Yun Jian's ample bosom through her thin clothes. This scene made Richard so angry that he almost vomited blood. You guys. Stand up. Richard couldn't hold back and took a big step forward. His handsome face revealed a fierce expression. Oh, you haven't left yet. Ce's handsome face, which angered both men and gods, curved his lips slightly. After hearing Richard's words, he didn't pull Yun Jian up. Instead, he rubbed Yun Jian's ample bosom even harder. Yun Jian was kissed by Ce and had her sensitive area grabbed. Her rosy face couldn't hide her embarrassment and she couldn't help but let out a soft moan. At this moment, Richard was about to explode from anger. Get up. Get up. Richard took another big step forward and shouted. His upbringing as a prince told him that he could not go up and pull Ce off Yun Jian directly. It was impolite. Richard could only stand beside Yun Jian and Ce and shout at them. Xiao Yunju and the other two were playing hide and seek in the distance, so they didn't see this scene. The three children were having a lot of fun. Ce kissed Yun Jian in front of Richard for more than 10 minutes before he raised his head and cast a sidelong glance at Richard. Ce's handsome face made Richard feel inferior. But what could he do? He was the Prince of Country H and held a high position. Many women were waiting to climb into his bed. Ce was just a little more handsome than him. Moreover, he was also a handsome man. He was even an international superstar and an award-winning actor. Hurry up and get up, you two. Richard clenched his fists and said to Ce in a muffled voice. If it wasn't for his manners as a Prince of Country H, Richard would have rushed forward. When Ce heard Richard's words, his handsome face curved into a smile. I'm flirting with my wife. If you say get up, we'll get up, okay? At this moment, Ce looked down at Yun Jian. He shamelessly grabbed Yun Jian's ample bosom in front of Richard. There are tulips planted where you're lying. You're destroying the environment. So get up now. Otherwise, I'll punish you for destroying the environment according to Country H's laws. Richard dared not expose his thoughts directly, so he could only come up with an excuse. After Richard said that, Ce stood up from Yun Jian and reached out to help Yun Jian up. Xiao Jian, slow down. I'll help you up. Seeing that Ce was probably frightened by what he said, Richard breathed a sigh of relief. It looked like he still had a chance to snatch Yun Jian away from Ce. Just as Richard thought about it, Ce spoke again. Ce was helping Yun Jian up slowly from the tulips and said something that made Richard puke blood. Chapter 1531. Ce's ability to lie through his teeth wasn't just for show. He slowly helped Yun Jian up without blushing or skipping a beat, as though he was afraid that Yun Jian would fall. It was as though Yun Jian was really pregnant. After helping Yun Jian up, Ce pulled Yun Jian's little hand and pulled Yun Jian into his embrace. Then, Ce placed his slender palm on Yun Jian's abdomen in front of Richard and gently stroked it twice, as though there really was an unborn baby inside. Richard stretched out his trembling hand and pointed at Ce. This time, he was so angry that he was about to vomit blood. However, before Richard could vomit blood, Ce grabbed Yun Jian's little hand and walked around Richard. He then called for Xiao Yunju and the other two to leave. Yunjian's face was slightly red. She pursed her lips and thought to herself that Siyi's skin was getting thicker and thicker. She was really afraid that one day, his lies would reach a whole new level. Seeing Siyi leave with Yunjian's little hand, Richard, who was standing in the distance, clutched his chest. Richard felt as though blood was about to spurt out of his chest from anger. However, this wasn't the end. Xiao Yunju and the other two circled around Siyi and Yunjian. Perhaps because Xiao Yunju had overheard Siyi's words, Xiao Yunju was now looking at Siyi and Yunjian with eyes full of anticipation. From afar, Richard could still hear Xiao Yunju asking Siyi in a loud voice, "Big brother Siyi, when will big sister give birth to a little Siyi for us to play with?" "Yay yay yay. A little Siyi will definitely be very good looking." Xiao Yunju's words were like a sharp sword that almost pierced Richard's heart. Richard clutched his chest. This time, he really couldn't take the blow anymore. He knelt on one foot in the tulip field and almost vomited blood. But even so, it didn't change Richard's desire for Yunjian. Men were all cheap. This sentence wasn't wrong at all. The more he couldn't have something, the more Richard wanted it. The more he couldn't have Yunjian, the more he wanted her. He wouldn't give up until he had Yunjian. In the evening, after playing in the tulip field for more than an hour, Xiao Yunju and the other two were tired and went to bed early. They slept in the palace at night. After arranging a room for Xiao Yunju and the other two, Yunjian and Siyi returned to their own bedroom. Richard had specially arranged for 2 bedrooms for the two of them, but Siyi didn't care. He directly followed Yunjian into her bedroom. When Richard heard this news, he was so angry that he almost spat out his dinner. Scram! Richard had maintained the image of a prince for so many years, but this time, it finally collapsed. He grabbed a teacup and directly threw it at the servant who reported to him that Yunjian and Siyi were sleeping in the same room. What made so angry? At this moment, Queen Marcia walked in from outside Richard's room. She waved her hand and signaled the servant to leave the room. Then, she stood in front of Richard. "Mother, Richard wanted to say something, but he was interrupted by Marcia. Don't say it. Mother knows," Marcia said. Speaking of this, Marcia was reminded of Yunjian's terrified expression back then. She also remembered how Yunjian helped her see through Lu Yan's true colors. Marcia turned her head and asked Richard, Mother wants to ask you something. Do you have to have her?" "Yes." "Mother, don't tell me you," Richard said in surprise. Before Richard could finish his words, Marcia waved her hand. Chapter 1532. No one else heard the conversation between Marcia and Richard except for them. The next day. The next morning, Yunjian wanted to get up at around 5 or 6 o'clock. Yunjian wanted to go for her morning exercise, but Siyi stopped her. Yunjian was puzzled. She did not understand why Siyi stopped her from going for her morning exercise. However, after Siyi finished his next sentence, Yunjian decided to give up on the idea of going for her morning exercise. "You want to go for your morning exercise, Satisfy me and I'll let you go." As Siyi spoke, he wrapped his long arm around Yunjian's waist. Yunjian's breasts were very voluptuous. When Siyi wrapped his arm around Yunjian's waist, he could feel the softness of her large lower body. This made him even more unwilling to let go. After hearing Siyi's words, Yunjian did not dare to move anymore. Especially after hearing what Siyi said in the tulip field, Yunjian was really afraid that Siyi would do something to her. It was not that she did not like Siyi to do something to her. But, she was afraid. That's right, Yunjian was not afraid of getting hurt, but when it came to this kind of thing, especially when it came to Siyi, who she liked, she was really shy and afraid. Cough cough. Good girl. Siyi felt Yunjian's slight tremble. He curved his handsome face and revealed a devilish and charming smile behind Yunjian's back. He reached out and stroked Yunjian's head. Something that belonged to him, he would take it for himself one day, completely and completely. And that day wasn't far from now. He was already 20 years old. It was time to have an heir. If Yun Jian heard Siyi's inner thoughts, Yun Jian would probably facepalm again. At around 8:00 in the morning, Yun Jian and Siyi were ready to get up. When Yun Jian and Siyi changed their clothes and went to the palace hall, they saw Xiao Yunju and the other two playing happily with Suli. Suli was Marcia's daughter and also Richard's sister. Suli had a good relationship with Yao Lily before, but for some reason, she was playing happily with Xiao Yunju and the other two. Moreover, she was a princess of country. Although she was a princess, she did not have the airs of a princess. She was forced to learn Chinese from a young age, so she was able to communicate normally with Xiao Yunju and the other two. Even Yao Lily and Lin Wan felt happy when they saw this scene. These four children have been playing together since early in the morning. Suli is a very nice child. Previously, Suli would smile whenever she saw me. Now that she's playing with the other three children, she's too lazy to talk to me. Yao Lily stood beside Yun Jian and said to Yun Jian. At this point, Yao Lily added sourly, as if he was angry that Suli had Xiao Yunju and the other two friends and was ignoring him, an old friend. Yun Jian knew that Yao Lily was trying to say something. Although Suli was Marcia's child, her personality was completely different from Marcia's. Yao Lily was trying to say that Xiao Yunju and the other two would be fine if they played with Suli. Yun Jian nodded. Sister. Brother Ce. Suli just said that there is a very fun theme park nearby. It is different from the ones we used to play in. Can we go there today? Duanli ran over and held Yun Jian's hand. She shook it gently and acted like a spoiled child. Xiao Yunju also ran over and held Siyi's hand. Just as he held Siyi's hand, Xiao Yunju suddenly realized that brother Ce always listened to his sister. Therefore, Xiao Yunju threw away Siyi's hand and ran over to Yun Jian with anticipation. Sister, let's go and play now, okay? Xiao Yunju also looked at Yun Jian with anticipation. Seeing Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya's expectant faces, how could Yun Jian refuse? Chapter 1533. Yay! That's great. Let's go play. Let's go to the amusement park. Xiao Yunju and the other two clapped excitedly and jumped up and down. Suli was older than Xiao Yunju and Duanli, so she didn't do the childish thing of clapping and cheering when she heard something that made her happy. Suli was quite excited when she saw Xiao Yunju and the other two being so excited. They could go to the amusement park again. However, in order to make herself look more mature, Suli stood on the side and grinned at Xiao Yunju and the other three. You guys are so childish. You should learn to be more mature like me. Finally, with Xiao Yunju and the other two skipping forward, the group arrived at the amusement park. Richard might have gotten his mother's approval, but he didn't want to see Ce and Yun Jian being intimate, so he didn't go with them to the amusement park. Richard didn't go with them, which was quite surprising, but no one noticed it. Yao Lily and Lin Wan went with them, but before they went, they secretly agreed to stay away from Yun Jian and Ce when necessary. They couldn't ruin their family's beautiful fun. Only Yun Jian, Ce, Xiao Yunju, Suli, Yao Lily, and Lin Wan went. Suli was the princess of country H, so when the group went out, Suli called her own car to send Yun Jian and the others, including herself, to the amusement park nearby. The amusement park located near Country H's palace was translated into Country Z's Chinese, Pleasure Island Amusement Park. Of course, Pleasure Island Amusement Park was only translated into Country Z's Chinese name. It was called differently in Country H's language. At this moment, Suli's private car had already brought Suli, Yun Jian, and the others to the entrance of the amusement park. Pleasure Island Amusement Park was a fairy tale themed amusement park. Therefore, most of the people who came to Pleasure Island Amusement Park were from rich families all over the world. Usually, parents would bring their children here to play. Of course, this was H country. In the Pleasure Island amusement park, the majority of people were from H country. The Pleasure Island amusement park also had a great influence in the world. Therefore, there were many people from all over the world who came here to travel and play. As soon as they bought the tickets and walked into the Pleasure Island amusement park, Yun Jian and the others saw many other tourists from Z country having fun. Sister, let's take a pirate ship. A merry-go-round. And Xiao Yunju rattled off a bunch of games in one breath. Looking at Xiao Yunju's expectant look, Yun Jian pursed her lips slightly. You guys go ahead. I'll wait for you outside. CE wasn't interested in these kinds of amusement park games. However, as long as he looked at Yun Jian, even if it was a game that he had no interest in, he could still enjoy it. Don't. Big brother CE, come too. Big brother CE, come too. Xiao Yunju pulled on CE's hand and swayed. Sister big brother CE doesn't want to go. Xiao Yunju saw that CE didn't compromise, so he turned his big round eyes to Yun Jian and said pitifully. Let's play together. Yun Jian's red lips curved slightly. She looked sideways at CE and said. Okay. Almost as soon as Yun Jian said that, CE agreed. The speed of his reply couldn't be faster. Xiao Yunju was satisfied and jumped around happily with Duanli and Duanya. Su Li added on from the side. Her words were directed at Xiao Yunju and the others. Your brother and sister are so loving. They treat you so well. They even accompany you to the amusement park to play. When she said this, a trace of envy flashed across Su Li's eyes, along with an imperceptible sense of depression and loneliness. Yeah. Big brother CE and sister treat us so well. Xiao Yunju responded at this time. As they spoke, the group walked towards the amusement park. Chapter 1534. There were many dangerous games in the amusement park that children were not allowed to play. The game equipment in the amusement park didn't depend on the age of the child, but the height of the child. Generally, thrilling games like the roller coaster were not allowed to participate in those who were under 1.4 meters tall. This was a matter of life and death, so naturally, they couldn't be careless. In front of every ride, there was a height measuring scale placed to stop children who were not tall enough to avoid accidents. For example, Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Duanya's age, there weren't many games that they could play in the amusement park, and thrilling games were even more forbidden. Therefore, Yun Jian's first stop was to bring Xiao Yunju and the other two to the merry-go-round. There were many people lining up to play the merry-go-round, especially since the Happy Island amusement park was a very popular large-scale amusement park. Rides like the merry-go-round were accessible to children of any age. In the amusement park, most of the people who came to play were adults who accompanied their children. Therefore, for a ride like the merry-go-round, which was accessible to children of any age, there were naturally many people lining up to play. There was a long line here. Sister, there are so many people. Xiao Yunju pouted, pulled Yun Jian's clothes and said. N. Yun Jian nodded lightly. The waiting area was full of people. It was not difficult to see that the amusement park's merry-go-round was quite popular. Yun Jian and the others' luck was not particularly good. When they entered the amusement park, the first game they played was about half an hour in line before it was their turn. Seeing that it was their turn to play in the next round, Xiao Yunju waited for a long time. He stretched out his hand to move his limbs. There were too many people standing in line here. There were people standing in front and behind. Xiao Yunju stretched out his hand to move his limbs. Just as he stretched out his hand, he accidentally hit a boy who was about the same age as Xiao Yunju standing in front of him. Rather than hitting, it was more like accidentally touching the boy's cheek with his hand. What are you doing? The boy standing in front of him was from Z country. It seemed that he was impatient from waiting. Now that Xiao Yunju had accidentally touched his cheek, he was furious on the spot and turned his head to look at Xiao Yunju fiercely. There was a man and a woman beside the boy. It wasn't hard to tell that the man and woman standing beside the boy were his parents. The boy's father was an average-looking man with a belly bigger than a beer. Every time he breathed, one could clearly see his fat belly tremble. The boy's father should be in his 40s. The boy's mother was very young. She was only in her mid-20s. If one didn't take a closer look at the similarities between the boy and the woman, it would be hard to tell that the woman was only 25 or 26 years old, but she was already the mother of an 8-year-old boy. It was even harder to tell that this woman and this man in his 40s were husband and wife. Xiao Yunju was shocked by the boy's roar. Xiao Yunju realized that he had accidentally touched the boy's cheek. It was his fault. The teacher said that he had to apologize if he accidentally touched the boy. "I'm sorry, I accidentally touched you." Xiao Yunju hurriedly apologized to the boy. "What's the use of apologizing? Whose child are you? How dare you hurt my Didn't your mother teach you how to behave? Really, I don't even know if this wild child has any bacteria on his hands. It's so dirty." Before the boy could speak, the boy's mother, who was in her mid-20s, pushed Xiao Yunju away. She squatted down beside the boy and scolded him while wiping his face. While wiping the boy's face, the woman scolded, "Children nowadays only know how to apologize. Do they think that they are very polite?" Chapter 1535. As the woman scolded, she also called her son, which was the boy's nickname. The boy's nickname was and his name was Zhang Laifu. It was a very tacky name, but the woman said it smoothly. The woman's name was Fan Xian, and she was 25 years old. Fan Xian was Zhang Laifu's biological mother. She was quite good-looking, and there was nothing to say about her looks. When she was in high school, she was the school belle. Because Fan Xian was not good at her studies and was a gangster, after she had a few boyfriends, she was taken in by Zhang Laifu's father, who was a middle-aged man in his 40s. The lump of fat on his stomach was so big that it was about to fall off. At that time, Zhang Laifu's father, the man named Zhang Shan, was already married. Fan Xian became Zhang Shan's mistress when she was 16 years old. Zhang Shan was the kind of man who came from the countryside to the big city and gradually developed his business. When Fan Xian was 16 years old, he already had a business. After Fan Xian seduced Zhang Shan, she got pregnant in less than a year and secretly gave birth to the child. After Zhang Shan became rich, he divorced his first wife and married Fan Xian. Fan Xian successfully became the mistress. In addition, when Fan Xian walked out, she did not feel that she was a mistress at all, so she felt inferior. On the contrary, she felt that she was great and powerful, better than her peers. Classmates of her age were still starting their own businesses after marrying their husbands. But what about her? She married her husband. Although she was a little old and was already in her 40s, she not only had a car and a house, but she also had a business. When she was free, she could even take her and the child out to play. Fan Xian was proud of this. She even advised her best friend more than once that as a woman, she should find a man who was more than 10 years older than her, who had a car, a house, and a business. Who cared if he had a wife or not? She would date him first. Because in the eyes of her friends, Fan Xian felt that her life was the most fulfilling. After being a rich madam for so many years, Fan Xian had a habit of looking down on others. Therefore, when Xiao Yunju accidentally touched Zhang Laifu's face with his hand, Fan Xian felt that her son's face had been dirted by something dirty, and she started to shout. Fan Xian was still half squatting on the ground, scolding as she wiped her son's face. Halfway through, a beautiful hand grabbed Fan Xian's wrist and forcefully pulled her up from the ground. Fan Xian was suddenly grabbed and did not react for a moment. By the time Fan Xian realized what was going on, she was already looking at Yunjian's seemingly emotionless and icy face. "My brother accidentally bumped into your son. It's my brother's fault. My brother has already apologized. You pushed my brother just now, so you have to apologize too." Yunjian grabbed Fan Xian's wrist and said coldly. Xiao Yunju had accidentally slapped her face and apologized. Yunjian naturally wouldn't say anything. After all, Xiao Yunju had really touched her cheek. But just now, Fan Xian pushed Xiao Yunju away. If Yunjian hadn't stood behind Xiao Yunju and supported Xiao Yunju's little head would have hit the railing next to him. Oh my. Why should we apologize? What's wrong with me pushing him? He couldn't reject it, could he? Haha. Fan Xian's wrist was grabbed by Yunjian. After struggling twice to no avail, she glanced at Yunjian coldly, without any remorse for doing something wrong. Apologize. Yunjian didn't say anything else. She just repeated these two words, and then the strength of her hand increased slightly. Ah. It hurts. Let go of me. Fan Xian's wrist was grabbed by Yunjian and the bones creaked. She was frightened, so she quickly shouted. Let go of my wife's hand. Seeing this, Zhang Shan stood behind Fan Xian and shouted at Yunjian. Seeing that Yunjian seemed to be a martial artist and was quite powerful, Zhang Shan didn't dare to rush up. Apologize. Yunjian still repeated these two words. At the same time, Fan Xian's wrist made a cracking sound. I was wrong, I was wrong. I'm sorry, I was wrong. Fan Xian was frightened by the severe pain and quickly begged for mercy. This wasn't a big deal, and Yunjian didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so Yunjian's eyes darkened and she immediately let go. Mom. Zhang Laifu on the other side grabbed Fan Xian, then raised his eyes and glared at Xiao Yunju and Yunjian. Chapter 1536. At this moment, the entrance to the merry-go-round opened. After waiting for about half an hour, it was finally Yunjian and the others' turn. Yao Lily and Lin Wan had gone to play other exciting games, so now only Yunjian and Ce were with the four children. Xiao Yunju, Duanli, Duanya, and Su Li. As soon as the entrance to the merry-go-round opened, the unhappiness from before was thrown to the back of their minds. Fan Xian shook her wrist that was grabbed by Yunjian. She was surprised. Why wasn't her hand hurt? And she didn't feel any pain at all? There wasn't even a trace of being pinched? Because the entrance to the merry-go-round was already open, Fan Xian didn't feel any pain on her wrist. So she quickly grabbed her son, Zhang Laifu, and called her husband, Zhang Shan, and ran to the entrance of the merry-go-round. No one saw Zhang Laifu fiercely glare at Xiao Yunju. His eyes were full of anger, as if he wanted to kill Xiao Yunju. The merry-go-round was quite fun. At least Xiao Yunju, Duanli, Duanya, and Su Li had a lot of fun. After the game ended, Su Li stretched her body and said to Xiao Yunju and the others happily, "It's great to be at an amusement park. It's the first time someone accompanied me to an amusement park. Dad has to deal with a lot of government affairs every day. Mom doesn't want to accompany me to the amusement park. In the past, it was only the attendants who accompanied me to the amusement park. Thank you." Su Li's eyes were full of emotion. At the same time, hidden in Su Li's eyes was an undetectable and unfathomable loneliness. "We'll play with you in the future." Xiao Yunju and the others blinked. They looked at Su Li with their innocent eyes and smiled at her. Really? Su Li looked up at Xiao Yunju and the others and asked with a trembling voice. "Of course it's real. Let's go play other games." Xiao Yunju and the others were ready to move. Then, they pulled Su Li to other places. "Let's go play the pirate ship. Sister will play the pirate ship with us." Yay. At this time, Xiao Yunju and Duanli seemed to have found a new goal. They pulled Yunjian and shouted excitedly. The pirate ship was a more exciting game. Although the pirate ship did not sway too much, if you were to sit on the pirate ship, you would feel like your heart was about to be shaken out of your body. Especially when it swayed from side to side more and more violently, it felt like if a person was sitting on a pirate ship without a seatbelt and enhanced safety features, they would be thrown off. In the amusement park, you would find that the more dangerous the game, the more complicated the safety measures. Because the pirate ship was a very exciting game, there was a limit to the height of the players. The island's height. SSSS. SSSS. Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Su Li wanted to experience the thrill of the pirate ship. Yunjian had to let Duanya stand there and let Ce look after Duanya. Yunjian accompanied Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Su Li. Because the pirate ship was exciting and the children's height was limited, there weren't many people waiting in line to play the pirate ship. Yunjian and the others waited for 5 minutes before they could go up. "It's you, huh?" Just as Yunjian brought Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Su Li onto the pirate ship, a groan came from behind. Yunjian turned her head and saw Fan Xian, who had a small conflict with Yunjian, holding her son Zhang Laifu's hand. "Hee, you dare to come here to play the pirate ship? Don't cry later and go home to your mother." Fan Xian's husband, Zhang Shan, was afraid of playing the pirate ship. Therefore, Fan Xian brought her son Zhang Laifu onto the pirate ship. Chapter 1537. Fan Xian obviously said that to Yunjian on purpose. Her original intention was to anger Yunjian. Yunjian's hand just now hurt Fan Xian. Although Fan Xian didn't feel the pain at all after Yunjian let go, Fan Xian was a vengeful person. "Get out of the way. Coward, I'll wait to see you cry later." "Haha. Get out of the way," Fan Xian said. She grabbed Zhang Laifu's hand and swaggered past Yunjian to the pirate ship. Yunjian ignored Fan Xian and Fan Xian's son. An ordinary pirate ship could seat 4 or 5 people in a row, but the pirate ship in the amusement park was bigger. It could seat 6 people neatly in a row. Yunjian and the others had a total of 4 people. Yunjian was afraid that Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Su Li would accidentally fall from the pirate ship, so she didn't let them sit on the side. Yunjian let Xiao Yunju and the other 2 sit in the middle, and then she sat on one side of the row. There were 6 people in a row. Yunjian sat on the leftmost side, then Duanli, then Su Li, and finally Xiao Yunju. Xiao Yunju was braver, so he was the furthest away from Yunjian. Yunjian's row could seat 2 people. "Mom, I want to sit with them." "Humph. I want to see them cry." Zhang Laifu took the seat on the right side of Xiao Yunju and sat down. He looked at Xiao Yunju with a strange look, as if he wanted to kill Xiao Yunju. Fan Xian spoiled her son, so she naturally agreed to Zhang Laifu's words. So Zhang Laifu sat on the right side of Xiao Yunju, and Fan Xian sat on the rightmost side of Yunjian's row. From left to right, Yunjian's row was followed by Yunjian, Duanli, Su Li, Xiao Yunju, Zhang Laifu, and Fan Xian. After the staff fastened everyone's seatbelts and reinforced the safety measures outside, they returned to the control room and the game officially began. "It's about to begin. It's about to begin," Xiao Yunju shouted. "TSK, what a coward." Fan Xian, who was sitting next to him, sneered. At this moment, the pirate ship game officially began. The pirate ship began to sway slowly. Xiao Yunju, Duanli, and Su Li were not afraid at all. Zhang Laifu's palms were sweating, but for the sake of his face, he forced himself to stay calm. Fan Xian was already screaming from being swayed. Yunjian just put her hand on the armrest and let the wind blow her hair and clothes. She didn't know what fear was at all. Just as the pirate ship swaying was at its peak and was strong enough to fling someone out, the foolish Zhang Laifu suddenly shouted at Yunju, "Brother Yunju. Go to hell. You just bullied my mother. Go to hell." As he said that, Zhang Laifu grabbed the seatbelt of Xiao Yunju's seat and unfastened the seatbelt on Xiao Yunju's body. Zhang Laifu had already planned to do so. Once the seatbelt was unfastened, the other safety measure was not enough to bind Xiao Yunju because Xiao Yunju was too thin. Especially at this moment, the pirate ship was flying to the highest point and was about to be thrown to the other side. Suddenly hearing Zhang Laifu's voice, the surrounding people looked over. However, at this moment, the pirate ship swayed down. Xiao Yunzhu flew out of the pirate ship because he didn't have a seatbelt. Oh my God! Something happened. Oh my God! Someone in the distance saw this scene and shouted in shock. He fell from a height of more than 10 meters. This boy will definitely die. At this moment, whether it was the people sitting on the pirate ship, the people standing on the ground waiting for the next batch of people to play the pirate ship, or the people passing by the pirate ship game, they all exclaimed in shock. Intuition told everyone present that Xiao Yunzhu, the child who was thrown out, was done for. Dead for sure. Dead for sure. However, at this moment, whether it was Fan Xian, Zhang Laifu, and the others sitting on the pirate ship, or everyone standing on the ground, they all saw a horrifying scene. They saw that immediately after Xiao Yunzhu was thrown out, Yunjian unfastened her seatbelt with one hand and pounced on the trajectory of Xiao Yunzhu. What is she doing? Is she courting death? Everyone in the surroundings was boiling with fear. For a moment, everyone was trembling with fear. Chapter 1538. The pirate ship swayed left and right, using the motion of the ship's body in the game to sway to the highest point. Therefore, when the pirate ship swayed to the highest point and Zhang Laifu unbuckled Xiao Yunzhu's seatbelt, Xiao Yunzhu was like a wild goose whose wings were suddenly broken. He fell from a height of more than 10 meters. This scene shocked the people around, but it was understandable. After all, Xiao Yunzhu was thrown from a height of more than 10 meters. If his head hit the ground first, his head would be smashed in half by the impact. It was not impossible for the blood in his brain to spurt out. If his brain was smashed in half, how could a fragile child survive? Yunjian sat in the seat furthest away from Xiao Yunzhu. She did not expect Zhang Laifu to be so cruel to Xiao Yunzhu. How could a child be so vicious? Because Su Li and Duan Li were in the middle, Yunjian, who was sitting next to them, did not notice what Zhang Laifu had done to Xiao Yunzhu. However, Yunjian reacted immediately. She did not even have time to think. She unbuckled her seatbelt and pounced toward the place where Xiao Yunzhu was thrown. Everyone present was scared out of their wits by Yunjian's actions. The staff was so scared that they quickly exclaimed to each other to turn off the pirate ship's operating switch. Quick, turn off the pirate ship's operating switch. At this time, everyone sitting on the pirate ship, including the people standing on the ground, looked up at the sky. Yunjian did not even think about it. She unbuckled her seatbelt and jumped out of another strengthened seatbelt with her slender body. She pounced toward Xiao Yunzhu. In the sky directly in front, Yunjian quickly stood on the pirate ship. Then, she kicked her legs violently and jumped over Xiao Yunzhu. Xiao Yunzhu was thrown out. Yunjian's kick caught up with Xiao Yunzhu's speed. She first grabbed Xiao Yunzhu with one hand, and then the two fell to the ground together with the force. There were many people standing around. There were men and women, young and old, and people from all countries. At this moment, everyone's hearts were tightly clenched. It fell. Just as Yunjian grabbed Xiao Yunzhu and the two fell to the ground from a height of more than 10 meters, Yunjian and Xiao Yunzhu suddenly landed beside a large railing machine that lifted the pirate ship. Here's the chance. Yunjian's eyes flashed. In the next moment, she reached out and grabbed the large railing that lifted the pirate ship at a speed that no one could see with their naked eyes. Yunjian held Xiao Yunzhu with one hand. She grabbed the large railing and used the large railing to spin 360 degrees around the large railing with Xiao Yunzhu. Then, she used the large railing to slow down the momentum. Her body was as light as a feather as she landed easily in the last few meters. This extremely complicated move was completed in just 3 seconds by Yunjian. 3 seconds later, Yunjian had safely landed with Xiao Yunzhu. A series of events happened in these 3 seconds. In the eyes of the surrounding people, it was just Yunjian grabbing Xiao Yunzhu and using the large railing to slow down the momentum. Then, she jumped and landed smoothly. falling from the pirate ship, more than 10 meters in the air. Yun Jian saved Xiao Yunju and landed smoothly without any injuries. This scene shocked the surrounding people so much that they could not describe it with words. In the next moment, the surrounding people exclaimed one after another. "Oh my God! This little girl is really amazing. Is this a show of Superman saving the world? Oh my God, am I seeing things? This can't be real." Compared to the people of various countries who suddenly saw Yun Jian's shocking performance, on the pirate ship that had been forcefully docked, Fan Xian and Zhang Laifu, who said that Yun Jian would be so scared that she would call for her mother on the pirate ship, were completely shocked. Their faces were pale and bloodless. She was actually so amazing. How was this possible? A person was thrown out of the pirate ship so violently. How could the other person catch up with the person who was thrown out? Not only that, she even saved the other person and landed safely. Chapter 1539. Wow! Superman. Little girl, you're the best. That's amazing. Could it be that the amusement park deliberately arranged that scene? That was simply too amazing. Too amazing. The surrounding people exclaimed in amazement in their own country's language. At this moment, everyone was applauding and cheering for Yun Jian's actions. It was obvious that Yun Jian's actions had exceeded everyone's understanding of a little girl. She was just a teenage girl. If she hadn't deliberately practiced this kind of performance, how could she have done such a frightening action? In that scene, if Yun Jian's performance had been slightly off, she and Xiao Yunju would have been dead without a doubt. Therefore, when they saw this scene, the surrounding people cheered and screamed. Everyone clapped and applauded. Everyone's eyes, without exception, fell on Yun Jian's body. Their eyes fell on this legendary girl. The pirate ship had completely stopped, and Yun Jian was standing in front of the pirate ship. There were railings all around to prevent the tourists from being accidentally injured while the pirate ship game was running. Just when everyone's eyes were on Yun Jian, they saw Ce using his height advantage to step on the railing and easily jump in. Ce's hand was still holding on to Duanya's collar. Poor Duanya's collar was grabbed by Ce and she swayed closer to Yun Jian. Ce jumped over the railing and entered the pirate ship game facility. He didn't care about the staff's shouts to stop him from jumping over the railing and directly walked towards Yun Jian. Poor Duanya was being held by Ce, but she blinked her eyes and looked pitiful to the onlookers. Although Xiao Yunju was brave, he was still frightened by the dangerous situation just now. When Yun Jian saw Ce walking over, she pulled Xiao Yunju towards Ce. "Keep an eye on my brother." Yun Jian's eyes flashed with a sharp killing intent as she said this very calmly. It was as natural as eating and drinking. Ce understood Yun Jian. He pulled Xiao Yunju over. Everyone looked at Yun Jian as if they were looking at their idol. Seeing Yun Jian turn around and walk towards the pirate ship, everyone was surprised. Fan Xian, who was sitting on the pirate ship, had already unfastened her and her son Zhang Laifu's seatbelt. Seeing Yun Jian walking over, Fan Xian panicked. Fan Xian didn't know what her son had just done. They thought that Yun Jian was coming over to unfasten Duanli and Su Li's seatbelts. Seeing Yun Jian's calm expression, as if nothing had happened, Fan Xian panicked. Yun Jian suddenly glanced over, making Fan Xian speechless. Yun Jian raised her hand and unfastened Duanli and Su Li's seatbelts. She then let them get off the pirate ship by themselves. Fan Xian heaved a sigh of relief, thinking that Yun Jian was going to follow Duanli and Su Li down the pirate ship. Yun Jian suddenly grabbed Zhang Laifu. She didn't even think about it and directly threw Zhang Laifu off the pirate ship that was more than 2 meters high. Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes widened. Fan Xian screamed even more exaggeratedly, "Ah! Before Fan Xian could finish screaming, Zhang Laifu was thrown off the pirate ship by Yun Jian. He hit the ground and cried out in pain. Before Fan Xian could react, Yun Jian had already followed up. In the next second, she stepped on Zhang Laifu's abdomen, who was rolling and screaming in pain. Chapter 1540. Why would she lay her hands on an 8-year-old child for no reason? Seeing Yun Jian throw Zhang Laifu off the pirate ship, the surrounding people were dumbfounded. Zhang Laifu was a fat boy, and it wasn't hard to tell that his family background was quite good. Otherwise, he wouldn't have eaten so much. Being thrown off the pirate ship by Yun Jian, even if Zhang Laifu was fat, his entire body would definitely be in pain from the fall. In fact, Zhang Laifu's feet had landed on the ground. Now that he had been heavily smashed, a clear, kacha sound could be heard when Zhang Laifu's legs hit the ground. The child's body was thin and weak to begin with, so when Zhang Laifu's legs hit the ground, a clear, kacha sound could be heard. Zhang Laifu's legs were fractured. At this moment, Yun Jian's foot was ruthlessly stepping on Zhang Laifu's abdomen. No matter how the surrounding people who didn't know the situation looked at it, they felt that Yun Jian had gone overboard. What was wrong with her? How could she be so ruthless to an innocent little boy? Many of the surrounding people were foreigners, so naturally, they couldn't understand Yun Jian's words. As foreigners, they could only look at Yun Jian's actions and guess Yun Jian's actions. Therefore, when Yun Jian stomped Zhang Laifu under her foot, the crowd went into a frenzy again. Oh my God! This little girl is too much. How could she hit a child so recklessly? Hurry up and stop her. Go stop her. The surrounding group of foreigners were stunned. When they realized that Yun Jian was hitting a child, they instantly felt disgusted with Yun Jian. A few of the more righteous foreigners even wanted to step forward to stop Yun Jian. Just as the more righteous foreigners were about to walk over to Yun Jian and try to stop Yun Jian from stepping on Zhang Laifu's abdomen, Ce suddenly pulled out a silver pistol from his trouser pocket and fired 2 shots into the air. His handsome face was extremely cold. What he said made the righteous foreigners, who did not know the truth, shrink back. Ce's thin lips moved slightly, his icy demeanor causing everyone present to retreat with a shriek. Anyone who dares to take a step forward will die. Ce was obviously protecting Yun Jian. Seeing Ce pull out a pistol, the surrounding people were frightened and retreated, screaming and fleeing. Fan Xian took a while to react. She saw her son Zhang Laifu being thrown off the pirate ship by Yun Jian. Zhang Laifu was struggling on the ground. She screamed and rushed over. Ah! 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 Fu! Ah! Go to hell! How dare you do this to my son, go to hell! As Zhang Laifu's father, Zhang Shan wanted to run over with a shriek when he saw his precious son being stepped on by Yun Jian, but he stopped when he saw Ce whipping out a gun. Gun! He have gun! Father's father! Father son son! Father son son! How dare you do this to son? Ah! Ah! Fan Xian rushed to Yun Jian's side. She ran to Yun Jian and grabbed Yun Jian's foot. She tried to lift Yun Jian's foot from Zhang Laifu's abdomen. Fan Xian grabbed Yun Jian's foot but found that Yun Jian's foot was as hard as iron. She tried her best but couldn't move Yun Jian's foot. At this moment, Yun Jian lowered her head. She pulled Fan Xian up with a cold face and threw her to the side. Fan Xian was smashed to the ground. Before she could stand up, she felt herself being pulled up. When Fan Xian reacted, she saw Yun Jian's face. Just as Fan Xian was about to say something, Yun Jian suddenly slapped Fan Xian. Fan Xian didn't even have a chance to speak after being slapped one after another. Yun Jian only stopped when Fan Xian was on the verge of death. She looked at her coldly and said, Chapter 1541. Yun Jian's words, coupled with her words and actions, made Fan Xian feel the fear of death. Ah! 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 Fan Xian had been slapped by Yun Jian like a crazy woman at this moment. Her hair was messy, and she was lying on the ground. Stop hitting him. Stop hitting him. I'm an employee of the Pleasure Island Amusement Park's monitoring room. I'm sorry about the accident just now. I found the reason why the little boy was thrown out of the pirate ship. This isn't a technical error. It's the boy lying on the ground who unfastened the seatbelt of the little boy just now when the pirate ship rose to the highest point, causing the little boy to fly out and almost cause an accident. Our Pleasure Island Amusement Park's equipment will not have any technical errors, so all the responsibilities must be borne by him and his parents. We have contacted the police, please wait for a while. Just when the scene was chaotic to a certain extent, a staff member in uniform came over. In order to emphasize that the accident just now was not caused by a technical error in the amusement facilities of his Pleasure Island Amusement Park, he emphasized that Zhang Laifu deliberately persecuted Xiao Yunju just now. The staff spoke in English. Most of the people standing around understood English. At this moment, when they suddenly heard what the staff said, they were completely shocked. The video surveillance in the monitoring room was, just now, Xiao Yunju could be thrown out, not because the safety facilities of the pirate ship were not in place, but Zhang Laifu did it deliberately. Oh my God. This can't be true. The little boy just had an accident, and it was done by this innocent-looking boy. Oh my God. If this is really done by this boy, then his heart is too bad. This kind of person is the scum of society. He should die. He doesn't learn good things at such a young age, and only knows how to harm people. That little girl did a good job. She did a good job. They should be kicked to death. After listening to the staff's words, the people around immediately turned to Yunjian's side. First of all, the staff of the amusement park would definitely be involved in the ending of this matter. Although Zhang Laifu was young, premeditated murder was no small matter. What's more, if they didn't deal with it properly, if word got out that the amusement park's gaming equipment was faulty and someone almost fell to his death, the amusement park wouldn't take the blame. After such a thing happened, the police came quickly. Yunjian didn't follow them to the police station. Su Li was the princess of H country. As long as Yunjian didn't commit murder or arson, the police wouldn't take Yunjian to the police station in H country. Zhang Laifu, Fan Xian, and Zhang Shan were not so simple. Before Zhang Shan, Zhang Laifu, and Fan Xian were taken away, Yunjian had already knocked them out. Only then did Zhang Shan dare to come forward. He hugged his son tightly and shouted. At this moment, the phone in Zhang Shan's pocket suddenly vibrated. He quickly put down his son, Zhang Laifu, picked up the phone, and opened the message. He saw that his bank account originally had a balance of tens of millions, but at this moment, the text message was sent. The remaining amount instantly became 0. Zhang Shan, who saw this text message, almost fainted. This text message was followed by a message: your wife and son provoked someone who shouldn't be provoked. I'll let you live and take all your wealth. Zhang Shan, who saw this text message, fainted directly. Chapter 1542. After Zhang Shan fainted, Zhang Shan, Zhang Laifu, and Fan Xian were taken to the police station in Country H. The Pleasure Island Amusement Park had blacklisted Zhang Shan and his family. Even the Pleasure Island Amusement Park, which was located all over the world, had blacklisted Zhang Shan and his family. This meant that Zhang Shan and his family would never be able to visit the Pleasure Island Amusement Park again. Watching Zhang Shan and his family being taken away, Ce pressed the last button on his phone with his long fingers and put it down. His thin lips curled up slightly under his handsome face. Yunjian had already comforted Xiao Yunju. Xiao Yunju was only frightened at the beginning. After he regained his composure, Xiao Yunju patted his chest and vowed to Yunjian. Sister, I'm not afraid. I wasn't scared just now. I'm a man. Seeing that Xiao Yunju wasn't frightened, Yunjian was relieved. Just as she stood up, she saw Ce put down his phone. Yunjian was suspicious. She raised her soft hand to take the phone that Ce was holding. Yun Jian reached out her hand to take the phone. Ce wasn't afraid of his privacy or secrets being seen by Yun Jian. He directly handed the phone to her, but he pinched Yun Jian's hand in return. To Ce, she could look at things like the phone as she pleased. But he needed something substantial in return. For example, Yun Jian checked Ce's phone twice and found that Ce had actually used his phone to hack Zhang Shan's bank card. He had also sent a message to Zhang Shan. Yun Jian checked Ce's phone. She suddenly raised her head and asked Ce softly with a hint of surprise in her voice. "You're a hacker?" Ce replied to Yun Jian and stuck close to Yun Jian. Both of them held the hands of Xiao Yunju and the other 3 children respectively while Ce pressed his face to Yun Jian's ear without the slightest hint of embarrassment. "Why didn't I know you're a hacker before?" Yun Jian read the content on Ce's phone seriously before turning her head to look at him. Turning to the side, Yun Jian's cheeks were almost touching with Ce's lowered head. She turned back quickly and asked. Even Yun Jian nearly had the urge to cover her mouth when she asked the question. Since when did she sound like a spoiled child? She was becoming more and more playful when she spoke to Ce. "You didn't know it before, but you know it now. There's still a lot of things about me that Xiao Jian needs to know. Do you want to know and see?" Ce suddenly pressed his lips to Yun Jian's ear and spoke softly, his soft voice brushing against the edge of Yun Jian's ear. Yun Jian nearly shuddered from Ce's soft voice. She quickly pushed the playful Ce away and led Xiao Yunju, the other 3 children, and Suli out of the pirate ship game. Ce's lips curled into a faint smile on his handsome face. It was a smile that he would only show in front of his most beloved Xiao Jian. Watching Yun Jian pull Xiao Yunju and the other 3 children out, a sinister image suddenly appeared in Ce's mind. He wanted to push his Xiao Jian onto the bed and make her give birth to a bunch of children for him. Just like how Yun Jian was holding Xiao Yunju and the other 3 children's hands now, the positions of Xiao Yunju and the others would be his and Xiao Jian's children in the future, for was not enough. 10. 20. Chapter 1543. Ce did not stay for long as Yun Jian had already left. He believed that it would not be long before a baby Ce would be stuffed into Xiao Jian's stomach. It was time for his heir to be born. If Yun Jian knew what Ce was thinking, she would probably glare at him before lowering her head. Yao Lily and Lin Wan did not know what happened on the pirate ship. Pleasure Island Amusement Park was indeed a world-famous amusement park. After Yao Lily and Lin Wan walked around the amusement park, they almost couldn't hold any more food and dolls in their hands. Lin Wan had a lot of fun today. Most importantly, she was actually having fun with the superstar, Yao Lily. God! This was something that Lin Wan did not even dare to imagine in the past. After meeting up with Yun Jian, the group returned to Country H's palace. Yun Jian and Lin Wan came out to play during the weekend. They still had to go back to school on Monday. Therefore, both of them planned to fly back home after dinner in Country H's palace. "You're leaving? Why? Did we not treat you well?" Richard asked loudly in shock when he heard that Yun Jian was leaving. Yun Jian was leaving? She was leaving so soon. How was he going to keep her in Country H? Once Richard remembered that his mother, Marcia, had promised to help him keep Yun Jian, he turned to look at Marcia. Queen Marcia nodded at Richard, hinting for him not to be anxious. Richard finally calmed down. Everyone was dining at the long table with Queen Marcia sitting at the most prestigious seat. Hearing Richard's exclamation, Yun Jian's eyes dimmed but she ignored him. Yao Lily answered Richard's question for Yun Jian. "They still have to go back to school." Yao Lily's words made Richard's eyes darken. Richard almost said to Yun Jian, "Country H is so good, why do you have to come back to Country Z?" But after thinking about it, Richard still held back. "What happened to Lu Yan was my fault. Please don't take it to heart. Stay for a few more days." Queen Marcia looked at Yun Jian and said softly. Even when Marcia was apologizing, her words were full of nobility. It was obvious that she was the queen and everyone sitting below her was inferior to her. I'll return to Z country in a moment. Hearing Marcia's apology, Yunjian did not compromise. She would never change her mind because of anyone. Isn't our country H good? Why are you in such a hurry? Queen Marcia asked again. When she said this, Marcia raised her voice. When Marcia said this, she acted as if she did not hear it at all. Yunjian and Lin Wan returned to Z country because they had to go back to school. Queen, they really have to go back to school. Even Yao Lily felt helpless about Marcia's dictatorship, so Yao Lily spoke again. Since everyone is sitting here, I'll just say it directly. Yunjian, I misunderstood you before. Now the misunderstanding has been cleared. If you stay, I'll let you become the future queen of country H. 3 days later, you'll marry my son Richard. Marcia's words were quite dictatorial. She did not even consider whether Yunjian would agree with her decision or not. Hearing Marcia's words, Ce looked up with his deep eyes that were as sharp as an eagle's. His eyes instantly reflected a strong murderous intent. Just before Ce was about to speak, Yunjian grabbed Ce's hand and signaled him to keep quiet. Then Yunjian stood up by herself. I think I must have made you misunderstand something. What queen of country H? I don't care. It seems that there's no need to continue this meal. Then I'll never see you again. When Yunjian said this, she signaled them to stand up. Lin Wan was confused for a moment. What was going on? However, Lin Wan and the others stood up cooperatively. How dare you? Just when they were about to turn around and walk out of the door, Marcia slammed the table and stood up. I'll give you the position of the future queen of country H, such a great honor, and you don't want it? To be honest, I don't like a woman like you. If it weren't for my who likes you so much, I wouldn't even accept an uneducated woman like you in my country. There was a strong sense of charity in Marcia's words. Chapter 1544. Marcia felt that what she said was like an imperial edict and Yunjian should accept what she said. But in fact, even Yao Lily could not accept Marcia's tone. That was why Yao Lily told Yunjian that although Suli was Marcia's child, Suli was completely different from her own mother. Suli was a good girl, unlike Marcia, who was dictatorial and tyrannical. Marcia's words could not be accepted by anyone. What was more ridiculous was that Marcia felt that what she said was like an imperial edict and there was nothing wrong with it. I don't care about the position of the Queen of H country. This position is a treasure to you, but to me, it is a useless position. Only a useless person can sit on this position forever. Only a woman without her own power and influence would guard her position as queen like a treasure. Needless to say, if H country were to be destroyed one day, then Marcia, the queen, would be even worse than a commoner. Because she only knew how to rely on men. She only knew how to please men in exchange for this position. To be honest, Marcia had nothing now that she had lost the position of queen. How dare you? Marcia was so angry by Yunjian's words that she slammed the table again. Yunjian actually said that she was a useless person. She actually said that the position she was sitting on was a useless one. My is the prince of H country and will be the king of H country in the future. How dare you say something like that? Fine. You don't deserve to be the future queen of H country. But don't even think about leaving today. Even if I want you to be my concubine, I want you to stay. Guards. Surround them for me. You can't escape today. Marcia slammed the table and roared. At this moment, she even threw away her years of self-restraint. Her carefully dressed face was now extremely ferocious. Marcia originally wanted Yunjian to be her son Richard's woman and the future queen of H country. But now, Marcia had changed her mind. A woman like Yunjian was not worthy of her son, Richard. However, her son, Richard, was already 25 years old. Until now, he had not taken a liking to any woman and had not given birth to an heir. It was rare that Richard liked Yunjian, so Marcia wanted to force Yunjian to stay and let Yunjian give birth to Richard's child. She wanted to stabilize her son's position in Country H first. After a long time, he would arrange a wife for Richard, and then let Richard's first wife give birth to an heir for him. At that time, Yunjian could die wherever she wanted, and she wouldn't care at all. Marcia's wishful thinking was very good. She also believed that the royal army of H country could stop Yunjian. Moreover, Marcia felt that Yunjian should be touched to death by giving Yunjian the status of a concubine. As soon as Marcia finished her words, a large group of guards rushed in from outside the palace. These guards were holding submachine guns and pistols in their hands. The scene was so overwhelming that it was frightening. Marcia raised her head high confidently. Yunjian grabbed Siyi's hand and comforted him so that he wouldn't take action. Otherwise, Country H would become history if Siyi took action. Country H was innocent. The only one at fault was Marcia. Yunjian glanced around and smiled coldly. She looked into Marcia's eyes and said, "Do you think these people can stop me? Why not? Could it be that you're a god? The royal army of H country is not something you can defeat." Marcia said confidently. The royal army of H country was a powerful army that was famous all over the world. Marcia didn't believe that Yunjian could escape. However, as soon as Marcia finished her words, Richard also felt that his mother's actions would definitely make Yunjian stay. Yunjian smiled contemptuously. Her smile was sweet, but it made everyone's hair stand on end. The royal army of H country is indeed powerful. They have even eliminated an international criminal organization, Yunjian said calmly. Marcia raised her head confidently when she heard that Yunjian knew about the power of the royal army of H country. However, before Yunjian finished her words, Yunjian's words were heard again. Her words resounded throughout the whole place. Marcia, Richard, and all the soldiers who belonged to the royal army of H country were shocked. Yunjian's clear, loud, arrogant, and unabashed words resounded throughout the place. Chapter 1545. Yunjian's clear voice echoed in every corner of the venue. Everyone was stunned when they heard Yunjian's voice. Apart from Ce, no one could react in time. Ce stood next to Yunjian. If Yunjian was not holding his hand, he would have attacked long ago. Why would he wait until now? However, Ce did not attack immediately because Yunjian was holding his hand and he could feel the warmth of her tender hand. Judging from today's situation, he would definitely let Prince Richard and Queen Marcia know how close death was to them. Ce's expression was nonchalant, but those around them who knew what Yunjian was referring to caught up with her swiftly. Yunjian just now, what did she say? She said that Queen Marcia's Country H royal army was powerful, but slaying God's kosha mercenaries would not be weaker than Queen Marcia's Country H royal army. She even said that there was no such thing in this world as an army that could stop slaying God. Slaying God? Kosha mercenaries? What? Slaying God? Could the slaying God that Yunjian mentioned be the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking? The king of secret agents that no one could surpass? The one who struck fear in people's hearts and made countless international businessmen and politicians flinch. Slaying God? Queen Marcia, Richard, and everyone from Country H's royal army were horrified when they heard Yunjian's words. Yao Lily's face darkened as well. Yao Lily only knew about Yunjian's ability and the fact that Yunjian could come and go as she pleased in an Han organization. Hence, she assumed that Yunjian was comparable to the 4 leaders of an Han organization. However, she had never expected Yunjian to be the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking. No wonder, no wonder. No wonder you're called SS. You're the #1 secret agent on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God. Yao Lily looked at Yunjian in horror. Yao Lily had never asked about Yunjian's identity before, but that didn't mean she wasn't curious. However, Yao Lily knew that the less he knew about this, the better. Today, after hearing Yunjian's question that had puzzled her for many years, Yao Lily was really shocked. It turned out that the person who had saved her back then was slaying God, the number one on the international secret agent ranking. Queen Marcia and Richard were still in shock. The two of them stood there stupidly, unable to react for a long time. It was not until Yao Lily's exclamation that Marcia and Richard realized what was going on. Naturally, Marcia and Richard knew what slaying God, the number one on the international secret agent ranking, represented. When Marcia and Richard heard what Yun Jian said, they were completely stunned. It was only until they heard Yao Lily's voice that both of them snapped out of their shock. When Marcia heard Yun Jian calling herself slaying God, the number one on the international secret agent ranking, she was about to retort in a cold tone when she heard Yao Lily's voice. Yao Lily had addressed Yun Jian as SS from the beginning. That was true. In the beginning, no one knew what Yao Lily meant when he called Yun Jian SS. However, after hearing Yun Jian's self-address and recalling that Yao Lily had always addressed Yun Jian as SS, slaying God? She was SS. You. Are you really? Are you really slaying God, the number one on the international secret agent ranking? The current boss of Kosha mercenaries? The queen's noble demeanor crumbled again and again. Her pupils constricted as she stared at Yun Jian and shrieked in shock. Yun Jian, the woman that her son Richard had his eyes on, was actually slaying God, the number one on the international secret agent ranking? The king of secret agents who terrorized the world? Queen Marcia had just finished asking Yun Jian when she saw Yun Jian taking 2 steps toward her. Marcia's heart skipped a beat when she saw that. She was so shocked that her face froze. In the next second, Yun Jian took 2 slow steps toward Marcia. She smirked and spoke in a cold voice. Marcia was so shocked that the crown on her head fell off. Chapter 1546. Slaying God, the number one on the international secret agent ranking, was a world-class existence. Not only that, she was also the boss of the Kosha mercenaries. The Kosha mercenaries alone were comparable to the country H's royal army. No. The Kosha mercenaries were not on the same level as the country H's royal army. The Kosha mercenaries were many times more powerful than the country H's royal army. In other words, if the Kosha mercenaries wanted to, they could even destroy a country. At the very least, the Kosha mercenaries could fight against the country H's forces. Marcia's face darkened completely. Especially after hearing what Yun Jian said, Marcia was even more terrified. The manners of a queen did not exist in Marcia's mind at all. Marcia's face turned pale. Fortunately, Lin Wan was not around. Otherwise, she would have been scared out of her wits and it would be difficult for Yun Jian to explain. Even if you're the number one on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God, so what? Don't forget that your brother and sister are still here. The country H's royal army may not be able to trap you, but don't forget that your brother and sister won't be able to escape death either. Marcia was so frightened by what Yun Jian said that the crown on her head fell off. She quickly squatted on the ground to pick it up and put it back on. From the corner of her eye, she saw Xiao Yunju and the rest. Therefore, Marcia used this to threaten Yun Jian. Of course, the moment Marcia heard Yun Jian say that she was slaying God, she was completely terrified. The number one on the international secret agent ranking, slaying God. She did not dare to let Yun Jian stay. Unless Marcia did not want to live anymore. However, based on what Yun Jian said, it seemed that Yun Jian was not going to let her go. Marcia trembled violently. However, as the queen of country H, she forced herself to calm down. Compared to Marcia's reaction, Richard looked at Yun Jian with infatuation and despair. She was slaying God, the number one on the international secret agent ranking. Did this mean that there was no hope for him? What Marcia said sounded right to the people around her. It was true that slaying God was powerful and no one dared to refute that statement. However, Yun Jian now had a family to feed. She was not alone. She had brought Xiao Yunju and the other 2 with her. As slaying God, the top secret agent in the international ranking, it was only natural that she could escape from the guns of Country H's royal army easily. However, things were different now. She, Yunjian, was no longer alone. She even brought along Xiao Yunju and the other two. It wasn't difficult for her to escape alone, but what if she brought along Xiao Yunju and the other two? Marcia was full of confidence this time. She could not afford to offend slaying God. Then, threaten slaying God. Slaying God would definitely compromise after being threatened. At that time, she would ask Yunjian to bring Xiao Yunju and the others away quickly. Marcia's only thought was to send slaying God away. She did not want to create a disaster because of her actions. However, just as Marcia finished her sentence, Yao Lily continued. What Yao Lily said made Marcia's expression change drastically. SS once brought dozens of people to escape the attack of hundreds of gold medal assassins. Let alone bringing 3 to 4 people to escape from Country H's royal army's attack. I know her. With her ability, even if she managed to escape safely with her people, she still has the ability to wipe out Country H's royal army. Yao Lily was very firm when she said this because she had seen Yunjian's ability before. What are you talking about? How is this possible? Yao Lily's words made Marcia's jaw drop. Just when Marcia was so shocked that she could no longer express the fear in her heart with panic, Ce, who was walking toward her from a distance, walked toward her. Ce, who stood not far away, strode forward and took 2 steps toward Yunjian, extending his arm to pull her into his embrace. Ce pulled Yunjian into his embrace in front of everyone. His thin lips curled as he spoke coldly. His words were directed at Marcia and Richard. 100 missiles from an Han organization have locked onto Country H's royal palace. You will pay for your foolish actions. Chapter 1547. With Ce's attack, how could Country H survive? At this moment, the words in Han organization deeply agitated everyone present. Everyone's expression changed abruptly. Especially Marcia and Richard. The Kosha mercenaries and slaying God were enough to scare Marcia and Richard. Marcia had completely dispelled the idea of keeping Yunjian. However, the problem now was that Yunjian and Ce would not agree to it even though Marcia had dispelled this ridiculous idea. They wanted to stop now that things had escalated to this stage. There was no easy solution in this world. An Han organization. I thought an Han organization doesn't participate in any country's disputes. Why? Marcia's expression changed again and again. Her face could no longer be described as flabbergasted. First, it was the Kosha mercenaries. Now, it was an Han organization. These 2 organizations were the assassin organizations that had caused an uproar in the world today. Marcia was so scared that she almost had a heart attack. Her whole life of being reserved and pretending to be elegant had completely collapsed at this moment. What are you going to do to Country H? At this moment, Richard finally understood the meaning of the word fear. He lifted his head and looked at Ce in horror. The expression in his eyes was endless fear. Country H will be destroyed because of you. Ce did not even look at Richard. He did not allow Yunjian to speak. Instead, he pulled Yunjian into his arms and said these words to Richard in despair. Country H, destroyed? No. To Richard, this was a fact that was harder to accept than death. I don't want Yunjian anymore. I don't want Yunjian to stay and be my woman. Let us go. Let us go. Richard ran toward Ce. Richard, who was not short, looked like a defeated captive at this moment. It was hilarious. When Ce heard Richard say, I don't want Yunjian to stay and be my woman, his eyes suddenly flashed sharply. In the next second, just as Richard ran to Ce to beg for mercy, Ce lifted his leg and kicked Richard to the ground. He held on to Yunjian tightly with one hand. When his other leg kicked Richard to the ground, he stepped on Richard's abdomen. Then, Ce stepped on Richard's abdomen and tossed and turned. His strength was so strong that Richard's internal organs made a gurgling sound. My woman can only be sullied by me. Who do you think you are? How dare you steal my woman? Prince of Country H? Even if you are the king of Country H, in front of me, you are still a piece of trash. As CE spoke, his long legs stepped on Richard's abdomen even more violently. Richard's face turned green after being stepped on. The royal army of Country H had already been frightened by Yunjian and CE. At this moment, no one dared to move. No, no, no. This is all my fault. Let us go. I kneel to you. Please let go. Is innocent. He did not do anything wrong. Please let go. Marcia looked at her son, Richard, who was being stepped on by CE and was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. She really regretted it this time. Seeing that Richard was almost suffocated by CE's foot, Marcia directly gave up her dignity as a queen. She actually knelt down in front of CE in front of everyone. But who was CE? Why would he care about Marcia? Just when Marcia thought that things had reached a point of no return, something even more desperate happened. At this moment, a guard rushed in from outside the gate. When she saw this guard, Marcia was stunned. This guard was Marcia's husband, who was also the closest confidant of the king of Country H. Before Marcia could wonder why the king's closest confidant was here, the bodyguard then exclaimed in an exaggerated tone, "Young master, you've been through a lot." Queen. Prince. Not good. I don't know what happened, but the technical department of Country H has been completely infiltrated by a large group of hackers. All the money in the bank has been frozen and all the weapons and equipment have been completely hacked. The king is rushing people to the front hall. You should go and take a look. Just when the guard finished speaking, Marcia and Richard suddenly looked up at CE with narrowed eyes.
Chapter 1548. How could he do this? At this moment, Marcia and Richard felt like dying. If Marcia and Richard weren't sure that CE was a member of an Han just now, then Marcia and Richard were sure of it now. Because in today's world, other than some powerful countries, only an Han could completely disrupt H country's technology department in just a few minutes. This was too scary. In the high-tech world, if a hacker was good enough, he could do many incredible things. And an Han was a place where countless elites and talents were gathered. After the guard finished his words, he was also frightened by the atmosphere at the scene. How could the king of H country kneel to a stranger? Their prince of H country was actually being stepped on by a stranger. The guard who didn't know what was going on shouted and rushed towards CE. At the same time, the guard took out a pistol from his waist and tried to aim it at CE. He shouted, "Let go of our prince," and rushed towards CE. However, just as the guard was about to fire, CE lifted Richard from the ground and used Richard to block the guard's gun. The guard reacted quickly. Seeing that CE used the prince to block the gun, he immediately put away his pistol and didn't fire. At the same time, CE took 2 steps forward with his long legs and sent the guard flying with a kick. It was so fast that the people around them could not see it with their naked eyes. At the same time, his hands were tightly wrapped around Yunjian's slender waist and he couldn't bear to let go of Yunjian. After kicking the guard away, CE stepped on Richard's body. However, this time, CE didn't step on Richard's abdomen. Instead, he stepped directly on Richard's head. Richard was completely humiliated when CE stepped on his head. As the prince of a country, as a global superstar, he didn't even have the strength to resist when his head was stepped on by a man. Richard was ashamed and desperate. Ah! Ah! Just kill me. Ah! Richard was not willing to continue being humiliated. However, this was not the end. CE stepped on Richard's head, making it impossible for Richard to turn around. The strength of his leg was so great that Richard couldn't even turn over. The pain in his body and the humiliation in his heart almost drove Richard to the brink of collapse. But this was not the end. Ce held Yunjian with one hand and stepped on Richard's head. She said to Richard word by word, "She's my woman. Don't even think about it. Her entire body belongs to me. Even if it's going to be defiled, it can only be me. Because she belongs to me." Ce's possessiveness was shocking. After he said the last word to Richard, he lifted his leg that was stepping on Richard's head, but at the same time, he lifted his leg and kicked Richard's face, knocking him out. Ce was not throwing a tantrum. He was just handling a matter calmly. His Xiao Jian could only be his. Even if he wanted to, it could only be him.
Everything about her, from her skin to her cells, could only belong to him. His personal possession. Even if she was tainted, it could only be done by him. Ah. My Marcia had completely lost her dignity as a queen. When she saw that Richard had fainted, she crawled toward Richard like a frightened dog. The crown on her head fell off as well. Marcia did not look like a queen at all. Richard and Marcia were completely scared out of their wits. Ce was already holding Yunjian's hand and walking out. Before he left, he took Xiao Yunju and the other two with him. He held Yunjian's hand carefully with one hand while his other hand grabbed Xiao Yunju and the other two by their collars and dragged them outside. Yao Lily followed them out as well. She planned to look for Lin Wan, who had gone to the washroom because of a stomachache just now. Ce held Xiao Yunju's collar with one hand and Yunjian's hand with the other like he was holding a treasure as they left Country H's palace. The Country H's royal army in Country H's palace did not dare to make a sound. They could only watch as Ce left with Yunjian. Not long after Ce pulled Yunjian out of the palace, Missouri-san arrived in a helicopter. Mo-san was called over by Ce. After Ce carried Xiao Yunju and the other three onto the helicopter, he carried Yunjian onto the helicopter and returned to Country Z. Chapter 1549. Ce brought Yunjian back to Country Z straight away. Of course, the matter in Country H was not over yet. He would deal with Marcia and Richard, but with Xiao Yunju and the other three here, Ce's actions just now had stunned Xiao Yunju and the others. Ce had wanted to crush Richard's head with his foot. If Xiao Yunju and the others saw such a gory scene, they would definitely be traumatized from their childhood. Therefore, it was all thanks to Xiao Yunju and the others that Richard was able to survive this time. What happened after that was simple. Ce did not declare war on Country H. Country H was not weak and it was easy for Ce's and Hun group to annihilate the country. However, an Hun group's internal influence would be greatly reduced after that. An Hun group's influence might even fall to the level of the Kosha mercenaries. Of course, if Yunjian had the intention to annihilate Country H, Ce would have done it. He did not care about anything else. Even if an Hun group was gone, it was not as important as his Xiao Jian. His Xiao Jian was his everything. The necessary persecution was unavoidable. Richard and Marcia would pay a painful price for their actions. Yunjian did not know what the price was for now. Yunjian was currently sitting on Ce's lap. She could not move even if she wanted to. Xiao Yunju and the others had taken up more than half of the space in the helicopter, so she could only sit on Ce's lap obediently. Beep, beep, beep. Let's go, let's go. The scary thing was that Xiao Yunju and the others began to play with each other the moment they boarded the helicopter. There was only so much space in the helicopter. Xiao Yunju and the others began to play with each other. Yunjian, who sat on Ce's lap, could clearly feel Xiao Yunju and the others accidentally bumping into Ce, causing her to jerk up and down on Ce's lap. It was as if, at this moment, Yunjian could clearly feel that part of Ce was expanding at a fiery speed. Yunjian hurriedly looked out of the window and pretended not to notice the change in Ce. The Xiao Yunju trio were still making a ruckus. At this moment, Yunjian suddenly felt Ce leaning towards her right ear. She whispered to Yunjian in a voice only the two of them could hear. "Xiao Jian, I want you." As soon as Ce finished speaking, Yunjian almost slid down from Ce's lap. In the end, however, Yunjian returned to Longmen City with a smile on her face despite Ce's harassment. Just as they arrived at Gu Yunjian's house, they saw Shuang sitting in the living room of Gu Yunjian's house. His chest was bare and a certain part of his muscular chest was wounded by a sword and was still bleeding. Si Luo, who sat beside Shuang, was applying medicine for him with trembling hands and tears in her eyes. Yunjian and Ce, who witnessed the scene, frowned slightly. Qin Yiru was definitely not home and neither was Gu Junjian. That was why Shuang was here. "Woman, what are you crying for?" "I'm not dead yet. It's just a little injury." Shuang looked at Si Luo, who was wiping away her tears as she applied medicine for him. He was not in pain but was annoyed by her. "Sob, you're hurt." "It hurts." Si Luo was no longer as fearful of the long scar on Shui Ying's neck as she used to. She was sobbing uncontrollably as she applied medicine for Shui Ying's trembling body. "Young master, it's someone from Yulong mainland." When Yunjian and Ce saw the scene, Mo Sen, who stood beside them, spoke with a darkened gaze. "Yulong mainland. The witch tribe is in trouble. Adam went missing not long ago after he sent the news back." Mo Sen's expression was grim. When he heard that Adam had gone missing, he had almost rushed to Yulong mainland to look for him. Yulong mainland. Yunjian pressed her lips together with a raised brow. For some reason, her instincts told her something. Chapter 1550. Tell me the details. Ce lowered his dark eyes slightly. He looked sideways at Mo Sen and said these three words briefly. Yunjian's eyes also lowered slightly. They had lost contact with Adam? Did this mean that they had lost track of Adam in the Yulong continent? Adam and Lan Su were together. If they lost contact with Adam, it meant that something must have happened to Lan Su. Something must have happened to the witch tribe. It's like this. Someone desperately escaped from the witch tribe and brought us news that something had happened to the witch tribe. The number one aristocratic family in the Yulong continent, the Huyan family, had attacked the witch tribe. At that time, that person was chased by a group of Huyan family's top experts to the organization. The Huyan family's top experts were all killed by Shuang. Cough cough, but Shuang suffered some minor injuries in order to save Si Luo. Mo Sen's brows furrowed tighter with every word he said. In short, the witch tribe was in danger. They did not know whether Adam, who was in the witch tribe, was in trouble. The number one aristocratic family in the Yulong continent, the Huyan family. Yunjian uttered the words softly and slowly. A sharp glint flashed in her deep eyes as a sharp, murderous intent flashed in an unknown corner. Young master, are we going to the Yulong continent? Mo Sen suddenly frowned. He looked sideways at Ce and asked solemnly. Pack up. We'll leave in 3 days. Ce relaxed his brows slightly, but the seriousness on his face did not diminish. I'll go too. For some reason, Yunjian could not let go of the witch tribe. Okay. Ce had no objection to Yunjian going with him. Because he had enough strength to protect her. Send a helicopter to pick us up at the Min City Military Academy in 3 days. Ce looked at Yunjian and said to Mo Senator he would not return to the Inhun organization in these 3 days. He wanted to accompany Yunjian to the Min City Military Academy. Yes. Mo Sen replied solemnly when he heard that Ce was going to the Yulong continent. Ce did not believe that something had happened to Adam in the Yulong continent. Even if something did happen, it wouldn't be life-threatening. In other words, as one of his 4 great protectors, how could Adam be persecuted by a mere aristocratic family of Yulong mainland? Of course, going to Yulong mainland was purely because he understood her. Yunjian would definitely go to the Yulong continent. Ce believed that she would go to the Yulong continent no matter if she was once the sorcerer goddess or the current her. Because the shaman tribe had once been her only hope for survival. It was a sudden decision to return to Yulong mainland. Ce intended to let Mo Sun and Shuang accompany her. Last time, it was Adam and Ma Sun. The Inhun organization couldn't be without people. It was enough to leave Lin Wei alone in the organization. I'm staying with Qinyu Jijia in Longmen City. Si Luo finally spoke up meekly and turned her gaze to Yunjian, as if wanting Yunjian to put in a word for her. Because Shuang refused. Indeed, the moment Si Luo finished speaking, Shuang grabbed Si Luo's hand and smelled the minty scent on Si Luo's body. No, you have to come with me. But if it weren't for me, you wouldn't be injured so badly. I can't hurt you anymore. I won't go. I'll stay in Longmen City with Qinyu Jijia. Si Luo blamed herself because Shui Ying's injury this time was her fault. Si Luo tried to break free from Shui Ying's grip, tears streaming down her cheeks at the thought of Shui Ying's injury. Let her stay in Longmen City with Qinyu. She won't run away, Yun Jian said softly when she saw the situation. The trip to Yulong mainland this time was not safe. Si Luo was just an ordinary girl. If she went along, Shuang would have to protect her. Si Luo was aware of this as well, which was why she refused to go. She did not want to be a burden to him. She would rather be the one injured. All right. Shuang relented at once at Yunjian's persuasion. Chapter 1551. Si Luo looked up at Shuang. She actually wanted to ask if she could stay with Sister Qinyu forever. However, when she opened her mouth, Si Luo recalled that she had asked this before and was dragged away by Shuang every time. Si Luo gulped and nodded in the end. She did not ask the question that was in her heart. She felt that when Shuang came back and realized that she had been staying with Qinyu for so long, she must make it clear to him that she did not want to stay with him anymore. She was a girl. It was not good for her to stay with a guy like him. Yes, she would make it clear to Shuang when he came back. Early the next morning, Ce and Yunjian went to Min City's military academy. They did not depart to Yulong mainland directly because they wanted to catch the Huyan family off guard. This was Ce's first time coming to Min City's military academy since school started. However, with Ce's age, the school could only arrange for him to be promoted to Senior 3. I'll look for you in the afternoon, Ce said softly to Yunjian as they walked to the teaching building. Yunjian nodded. Ce then turned around with his hands in his pockets lazily as he made his way to the Year 3 classroom. It was only then that Yunjian went to her classroom. Lin Wan did not know that Yunjian had gone to the toilet when she revealed her identity in Country H's palace. Lin Wan had no idea what had happened in Country H when she saw Yunjian coming in from the classroom door. She quickly waved at Yunjian and smiled brightly. Yunjian, you're here for school. I told Muing about our trip to Country H 2 days ago. It was fun, wasn't it? Lin Wan was not in Country H's palace at that time. She had gone to the toilet, so she did not see Country H's Queen Marcia's face. Therefore, in Lin Wan's eyes, she thought that Marcia and Richard, the Queen of H Kingdom, were quite friendly. Yunjian didn't explain much. She just nodded her head in agreement with Lin Wan. No matter what Marcia and Richard had done before, since Lin Wan was not present at that time, it would be good to leave a good impression on her. For someone who didn't know the truth, there was no need to let her know the truth. Sometimes, knowing the truth wouldn't do any good. Muing had already returned to the Min Military Academy. Since Mad Dragon had returned to the Kosha mercenaries, there was no point for her to continue staying at home. Yunjian, come to the office. Just as the class was bustling with noise and excitement, before the class officially started, their homeroom teacher, Mr. Chu, stood at the front door of the classroom and waved to Yunjian. After Ms. Chu called Yunjian, she went back to her office. When the surrounding students saw that their homeroom teacher came to the classroom and called Yunjian to the office personally, they were all in an uproar. Oh my God, the homeroom teacher came to the classroom personally to call Yunjian. Yunjian, did you do something that annoyed the homeroom teacher? Hurry up and go to the office. Don't get scolded if you're late. Usually, nothing good happened in the office, so the students naturally thought so. Lin Wan also looked at Yunjian in confusion. In the end, for Yunjian's sake, she also said to Yunjian, Yunjian, hurry up and go to the office. Yunjian nodded. She turned and walked out of the classroom under the gaze of the whole class. Walking along the corridor to the office, Yunjian saw more than 10 students standing in the office. However, Yunjian had never seen these students before. She guessed that they must be second or third year students. Moreover, these students were all boys. This row of boys stood in the office with their heads slightly lowered. They looked very similar to boys who were punished for making a mistake. Just as Yunjian walked into the office, Miss Chu waved at Yunjian. Yunjian, come, come. Everyone's here. Hurry up and come over. Although Yunjian had her doubts, she still followed her. At this moment, Miss Chu cleared her throat and said, Ahem, it's like this. There are more than 10 high school military schools like Min City Military School all over the country. This year's new semester has just begun. All the high school military schools in the country are planning to send their strongest students to participate in a friendly competition. This friendly competition is a competition of strength. Ahem, of course, since more than 10 military schools are sending their strongest students to participate in the competition, we have to get a good ranking, right? As for you guys, you are the strongest students selected by our school. Because this competition notice is a little rushed, you have to pack your bags and participate in the competition this afternoon. If you guys don't have any objections, then it's decided. Just as Miss Chu finished speaking, the boys standing around expressed that they had no objections. These boys were seniors from the second and third years of high school, but they had never seen Yunjian before. In the past, there were more than 10 high school military schools in the country every year. However, those who were qualified to participate were usually male students. Moreover, they were definitely not new first-year students. Therefore, one of the boys looked at Yunjian a few times. In the end, he couldn't help but look at Yunjian with a questioning gaze. He said to Miss Chu, I have no objections to the others. This girl is a first-year student, right? Our school has never sent a girl to participate in such a large-scale friendly competition. Moreover, she's a first-year student. Chapter 1552. There were about a dozen military schools for high school students in the country. There weren't many military schools for high school students, but there were many military schools for university students. Min City Military School was a military school for high school students. There were only a dozen military schools for high school students like Min City Military School in the country. Normally, these military academies would send out their strongest students every year to participate in the friendly competition between the military academies of the high school age group. This was something that everyone in Min City Military School knew. However, there had never been a girl among the strongest students in the school who could participate in the friendly competition in the past. Moreover, the school usually wouldn't send freshmen to participate in such a friendly competition. Freshmen were students who had just entered high school and hadn't participated in the school's training. To put it bluntly, freshmen hadn't been trained and were no different from ordinary high school students. Unless the school was stupid, they definitely wouldn't send freshmen to participate in such a friendly competition. Therefore, the moment this boy finished speaking, the other boys protested. That's right, teacher. We don't have any other opinions. You're asking a girl to participate in a friendly competition, and she's still a freshman. If she drags us down, we won't even have a place to cry. That's right. Teacher, you can't do this to us. These male students were all from the second and third year of high school. More importantly, these male students had participated in the same friendly competition as this one. Therefore, they were very concerned about whether they won the friendly competition or not. Stop making noise. What are you guys doing? Teacher Chu first knocked the heads of the dozen or so male students one by one, and then snorted softly. Then, Mr. Chu cleared his throat and said to the dozen or so male students, compared to Yunjian, it's still not certain who's better. Moreover, this friendly competition will last for 3 days. On the first and second day of these 3 days, the organizers will bring you guys to a bodyguard company for training. That bodyguard company is a big company that's famous all over the world. There are many experienced bodyguards in it. When the time comes, the bodyguards of their bodyguard company will point out your weaknesses one by one and then correct them. The friendly competition will only be held on the last day of the 3 days. After Teacher Chu said this, he successfully attracted the attention of the dozen or so male students to other places. 2 days before the competition, will be sent to a bodyguard company for training. Teacher, the bodyguard company you're talking about, is it the world-famous cheetah bodyguard company? As soon as Teacher Chu finished speaking, a male student immediately asked in a surprised and crazy voice. After this male student finished his question, another male student answered in a shocked voice, "What's wrong with you? Cheetah bodyguard company? Isn't that a world-famous bodyguard company? I heard that Cheetah Bodyguard Company's bodyguards were formed after they retired from the top special forces from various countries. Moreover, the bodyguards of the Cheetah Bodyguard Company are all experts who have faced off against some of the top international assassins and secret agents. It's just like in movies, they're really amazing." After this boy finished speaking, the other boys were 10 male-cheeked. That's right. The bodyguard company you're going to for training is the Cheetah Bodyguard Company. Finally, under the expectant gazes of more than a dozen male students, Mr. Chu nodded, "You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."